and do the land acknowledgement. Municipality of Dysart acknowledges that we are on the traditional territory known as the Williams Treaty First Nation, which includes Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Bolswell, and Georgina First Nations. And we thank those nations for their care and stewardship over this shared land. So could we have a resolution to adopt the agenda?
Be it resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of the council of the municipality of Dysart et al. Held on April 25th be approved as presented.
Mover, Councillor McKechnie and Tammy, all in favor? Carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Being none, the resolution to adopt the minutes.
Be it resolved that council approves the April 11th regular council meeting minutes as circulated.
Mover and seconder, Nancy and Pat, all in favor? Okay. Any report from the deputy mayor from the county?
Not right now.
We meet tomorrow, so I don't think there's anything new. We're still waiting for legal opinion on the shoreline or the short-term rental. That's going about as fast as molasses runs. But anyway. Okay. What did she say she's doing? What's she doing? Oh. I guess he's next. That would be good. So we have to go into a public meeting. Yeah, to do that.
I got a resolution.
All right.
Right up here, my friend. So do we need to do a resolution on that? No.
Oh, oh, great.
How are you doing, John?
I'm very well. Very well.
How many years were you on BIA?
I don't know. I think since about 1998.
I think I was at the annual meeting about 15 times
Yeah.
when you were there. Anyway, congratulations.
Thank you.
You on your retirement?
Yeah, I'm trying to get that figured out.
I know.
I hope I do better than you did.
Hey, I have all kinds of sympathy for you. It's a mess. Anyway, I think that I'm just going to read it to you.
Okay.
The mayor and council members of Dysart present a certificate of appreciation to Luke Shell for many years of involvement and as president of the BIA. Your commitment, time, efforts, and dedication are greatly appreciated within the community. And again, thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed every second of it. And anybody that was involved with me during that time knows how much I enjoyed it. So it's good to see all you guys here. Yeah. I'm
Thanks.
there's a lot of this community that's really excited about our council. So
Well, don't get too excited.
the jury's still out.
Okay, so I guess next is Mr. Carson.
We have a motion to move into.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, we have a resolution first then.
Be it resolved that council hereby adjourns the regular meeting of council at 9:04 a.m. to proceed into a public meeting to consider official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment application files D00OP 2002-01 and D14ZB 2022-010 for Hot Pond Enterprises Corp.
Okay. So will we have a mover and seconder? Nancy and Tammy, all in favor? Okay, so we have Mr. Carson and we have Jeff and Chris on here. Who wants to lead? Jeff, do you want to give us a little overview?
No, I can do that. So thank you. Good
Okay,
morning,
Chris.
Mayor Ferry and members of council. This is for the following application, 3A on the agenda for the Hot Pond development, which is an application for an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment. And here we go. So the subject property is located within the Halliburton Village at the corner of Victoria Street and Maple Avenue. The application is proposing a medium density development with a total of 18 dwelling units. The proposed development will include 3 separate buildings that will house a total of 6 units per building and will be developed in a total of 3 phases. The proposal will require the official plan amendment of the subject property that would change the designation of the commercial areas to urban residential areas in order to permit the medium density residential. The proposal will also require a zoning amendment to rezone the property from general commercial and urban residential type 1 zone to urban residential type 3 exception zone for the proposed use and development provisions of the property. The County of Harbourne is the approval authority for the official plan and will conduct a separate approval process at a later date. All neighboring property owners within 120 meters of the subject property and appropriate agencies have been circulated for comment. The circulation went out on April 4th of 2023. The required advertisement was also posted in the local newspaper as per the requirements of the Planning Act. To date, the following public comments have been received. Council will need to address the applicable comments as noted below. So just ones that sort of have some comments related to the development, which you'll hear shortly, which may include sidewalk contributions and things like that. Council may want to have some comments related to that at the end. So we've had one letter of support, which supports the building of the rental units on Maple Ave. They're saying that it is most needed in the community. Comments provided by the applicant from the public consultation strategy process, which was a process that the applicant took forward to neighboring property owners to discuss the application. They've met with some neighboring property owners and then they provided these comments. The request to pay attention to noise levels during construction, a request to have 1 to 2 units in each building be affordable if possible, request to use local trades and material suppliers if possible, request to use porous materials on parking area as opposed to asphalt, request for underground parking, and request to use sustainable building practices. The Communities in Action walk audit for Maple Avenue and the letter from the Halliburton Kawartha Pine Ridge District Health Unit. They note that the proposed will generate more pedestrian activity at this location. Recent fatality at intersection where someone was struck by a vehicle. Currently only 1 sidewalk on west side of Maple Ave. Recommend a pedestrian crossover to provide crossing for residents and to slow traffic within that area. Recommend including ramps at entrance and curb cuts to be built through tender number 2023-PW-02. We hope that the municipality will collect cash in lieu for parklands to provide funding to improve active transportation infrastructure in this area, and recommend developer to include bike parking for each building. And then the county emergency services just noted to make sure there is easy access to all entrances for paramedic staff and their equipment. The MTO has commented that the proposed is not deemed a large traffic generator. Therefore, the applicant may proceed without requiring any permits from the MTO as the proposed development is not located with the MTO permit control area. And then a letter has been attached with this report. And then the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, Class EA is not required for the proposed development. And a letter has been attached as well with the staff report. In summary, the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment will recognize the intended residential use of the subject lands. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment will establish a specific zone to recognize appropriate development of the subject property. All comments received to date have been summarized and attached for council's consideration. The proposal is generally consistent with the provincial policy statement, the municipal official plan, and represents good planning. If council considers the application, the recommendations included at the top of the report may be appropriate. And the applicant, Richard Carson, is in attendance and can speak further to the application and answer any questions that council may have.
This means this project probably isn't going to happen this year if it has to go to the county again, right?
That's the process, and obviously staff do their best to bring the process through most efficiently as possible. So we'll work in the background with the site plan agreements and the other agreements, responsibility agreements, while that's taking place at the county to sort of mitigate that timeline anyways.
Okay, I think everything we can do to promote it, it would be good. Richard, do you have any comments?
Sure. Good morning, Mayor Ferry and council members. Thanks very much for taking some time to let me chat as well. I apologize in advance. I'm sitting in the Ottawa airport, so I hope there isn't background noise, but I'll do my best. And good morning, Jeff and Chris, who you should all know have been amazing from the DISAR to help us navigate through this process. Really looking out for coaching us, but also being very strict to the laws that and the various municipal acts that are required here. So it's been a long process, but great support from Jeff and Chris. Many of you are aware of this project. We initially came to council 2 years ago in the summer of 2021, and then again this past summer. And the reason at that time was to introduce the project and to seek approval for affordable housing, which we do have the option of following. Since that time, there have been a number of studies. As many of you know, the land is in a flood zone. There were some engineering studies, soil conditions that had to be looked at seriously, and so that we could have sound construction techniques given the site. And that's why it has taken a number of months to get to this stage. Just as a quick summary, again, it's 3 buildings. Think of it as a 6-plex, so 6 rental units in each of 3 buildings. They would be sequentially constructed about 1.5 years apart, with the most northern building starting first. These would be rental units. By law, we have to have at least one of them to be have accessibility. In other words, for folks in wheelchairs, though we will have 2 units in each building, we've decided to be accessible, which we think is important. There have been comments again from neighbors, almost all of them very positive, though as Chris said, a couple of very specific suggestions, I think all of which are good ones. One though, underground parking is not feasible in this area. And so what we are proposing is above ground parking. And if you can picture that site, it would be along the western boundary, actually adjacent to the parking that is there for the apartment next door. I think that's what I just wanted to provide an overview, see if people have questions. We believe there's a huge demand for rental housing in the county and in Haliburton specifically. I've already had a number of inquiries from people who are interested. And I would also just note that many of you know on the location, there is a current house that Hot Pond, our organization, owns and rents out to a couple there who will move into this apartment. So just to be clear, the idea is once the first building is constructed, they will move in, and then that older bungalow will be torn down and another one of the buildings put on that site. So neighbors are very in favor, as other stakeholders. And I'll turn it back to you, Mayor, or other council members who might have questions or comments.
Well, it's a project that's certainly needed. Any questions from council? Well, I assure you, our staff will work as diligently as we can to progress things, because we know how this is needed. It sounds like you started 3 years ago, so we should be able to move it as fast as we can. Thank you, Richard. Jeff and Chris, could you stay on the line? Just in the interest of, I'd like to jump to item number 11. Just because of this is the Harbourne Holdings resolution we need to do. I guess we could, but I just don't want to hold this up. It needs to go to the county and be there for tomorrow. So the sooner we get it there, the better. We'll close out then. We'll close now and then we'll go into that. The rest of you.
Sorry, I just had just 2 comments. So just from the council, there were some comments I just wanted just some, I guess, direction or just comments from the council that One of the comments was recommend a pedestrian crossover to provide crossing for residents to slow traffic, and just more putting that towards council, as we sort of just need to address these comments. Staff need to address those comments anyways that council has heard and have sort of commented either way onto their thoughts on these.
Yeah, this
comments.
isn't the proposal we're talking about now, Chris, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's no question, and we did have one accident there, but it is pretty good visibility there, but it's just because they're seniors and some of them disabled. Takes a while to cross the road. So are you suggesting the developer do that, or?
I'm sort of, discussion through council that, whether they feel that this is something that's needed, or maybe in the future, or that something that they don't feel is needed at this time or appropriate during the development. Those are just things that council can discuss and then sort of direct staff, or just have that discussion anyways. And Jeff, you may want to jump in to clarify that.
Nancy, do you want to comment?
I just had a question. Could we ask Rob about if there's a way to reduce the speed limit from the gardens right into town, because there's going to be a lot more pedestrian traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 50 now, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Make it to 30 or?
Just in that short.
Yeah.
Well, somebody suggested, well, we're talking about that. Going right down to this high school, bringing that down too.
Yeah.
Because
Of the hook, line, and sinker.
Park and everything else. Bring the downtown core could be brought down.
The whole town could be 30, yeah. I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
To get back to Chris's discussion there about the crosswalk, I don't know what everybody else thinks, but just a little background there. My mom lived at the Park Lane there for years, and she was very nervous crossing. She loved to go for a walk, loved to go across at that time to the coffee shop. But I think it would ease the mind of some of them for sure if we did have some sort of crosswalk there. So I'm kind of leaning towards that way. I don't know what everybody else's opinion is, but
I think there's a big difference between legal crosswalk and just painting it on the highway. So we can maybe come up with a hybrid there or something. But I hear you, it is traffic, but again, the traffic comes around that corner and they're going 50 or 60 kilometers. Yeah, so. Yeah, signage would help. So this is something we can do later then, Chris?
Yeah, it's just something that we just want to make sure in our comments back that they've been addressed, or that council has heard and has spoke to those comments that, maybe have considered in the future type thing of mitigating those measures that are provided in the the comments. So I can certainly note that and discuss with Public Works on some of those comments, and then we can sort of see what those options are, I suppose.
Okay.
And then the other one was cash in lieu. So we typically collect cash in lieu for condominiums, severances, and subdivisions. We don't have in the parkland dedications bylaws, so we don't have anything that really allows us to collect any sort of fees or anything that would contribute to sidewalks. So that's more of a question towards council as well, if there's any considerations, or through the site plan control, if they have any direction that may want to collect or implement some sort of fee towards the developer to help facilitate those active transportation infrastructure in the area.
There's a sidewalk, isn't there? Yeah.
Yes, and then I believe through the upgrades there, Public Work has provided comments that the tender work provides an asphalt walkway, or will provide the asphalt walkway from Park Street to the Gardens retirement on the east and north portions of the road. But in that tender, there is no pedestrian crossover included for Victoria Ave or like Victoria Maple Ave as part of that work.
I know we took cash from the gardens, but we didn't take nearly enough. So anyway, we can do that under the site plan control then?
If directed by council, I think, right, Jeff? Like, I think that's maybe a question towards council if there's something that they're looking for contributions or even, for the sidewalks or active transportation, I should say.
Yeah, if I may, through you, Mayor, I guess it depends whether council thinks the crosswalk's needed for this development or whether this is something that the municipality will look at separately. So if this is something council thinks is needed for this development and they want the developer to contribute towards the crosswalk, this is that opportunity. The difficulty for site plan control is that it's no longer under council's purview. It has been delegated to staff, so there's no authority in our official plan for staff to ask for a crossover. There are provisions for active transportation, sidewalks, that kind of thing, but to ask for something as substantial as a crosswalk might be a bit beyond what staff would typically ask for. So if council thinks that crosswalk is necessary for this development, maybe a little bit of direction would be necessary right now.
Councilor Barry?
So if we took cash in lieu, then we can sort of direct that wherever we want to direct that to then, right?
Well, that might be a good discussion to have with the developer. I suppose it's something council could ask for, yes.
Yes, Nancy?
Barbara, for the cash in lieu of parkland and stuff, is that designated to a certain area? Or can it be used for whatever you choose?
So I think it can be used within the legislated framework.
We're going to try the traffic. Well, I guess I'm trying to buy some time here, so I'd like to get this down to the county to get it started. Whether we need to amend the resolution or whatever we need to do, but I'd like to try the traffic calming first with the signs and see if we can slow them down. And then, like Barry's idea, and we take some, then we can decide, take some money for a crosswalk or whatever form that needs to be. I'm not just sure. Yeah. Does that make sense to the planning?
Yeah, I think that's a discussion that can wait. It doesn't need to be decided today. So right now, we're just looking at the official plan amendment. Staff are recommending approval in principle of the zoning bylaw. So the zoning bylaw won't be passed today. And the site plan agreement can't proceed until the official plan and the zoning bylaw move forward.
We do have time then.
Yep.
Okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
All right. So we need a resolution on this one?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Be it resolved that report for file number DOP 2022-01 and D14ZB 2022-010 Hot Pond Enterprises, which consists of part lot 17, concession 8, lot 6, and part lot 12. Plan 1 in the geographic township of Dysart be received for information, and the council directs a bylaw to adopt OPA 2 be brought forward for consideration during its April 25th meeting. And the council recommends approval of the proposed bylaw. And the council directs a bylaw to be brought forward for consideration during its April 25th meeting, which would change the zone on the subject land from general commercial 4 exception zone, general commercial 4 HC4 exception zone with holding provision and urban residential type R1 zone to urban residential type 3XX or 3XX exception zone. And the council recommends that the proposed bylaw be approved in principle, subject to the approval of the official plan amendment.
I didn't hear all that. Would you like to read that again?
I'll pass it around.
Did I have a mover and seconder? Barry and Pat, all in favor? Carried. Now we can go into regular council and jump on the agenda, right?
9:23, just 1 second.
9:23.
So be it resolved that council hereby adjourns the public meeting at 9:23 a.m. and reconvenes the regular meeting of council.
Mover and seconder, Tammy and Walt, all in favor? Carried. Okay, so while I've got Jeff and Chris there, it's number,
I believe it's 11H.
yeah, 11. Okay. Okay, so that's 11H. So do we have a resolution on that?
I have to get there. Hang on.
Oh, yeah, she's.
And if you'd like, I can give a bit of background on what this
Yes.
word is about. Sure. A modification to official plan amendment number 1, which was made by the County of Harbourne Council, is presented today for council consideration. This relates to a development proposal by Harbourne Holdings on Grass Lake and Peninsula Road. So the intent of this modification is just to create a special policy area within the Dysart et al. Official plan to ensure that the applicant and future owners of the subject lands prove adequate drinking water supply prior to development, so that it ensures there's no impact on neighboring properties. Staff did receive a letter from Weir Folds, who are the solicitors working on behalf of Dr. Amy Filion and the Harbourne Veterinary Services Clinic, which is located across the road at 1014 Peninsula Road. They write to express their support for the proposed modification, which came about through discussion between the applicant and their client. They are of the opinion that any proposed development should not negatively impact their water supply, both quantity and quality, with respect to their property, which is the intent of this modification. So if council chooses to endorse this modification, it will proceed back to county council for review and a decision, I believe, tomorrow. And if you have any questions about the staff report, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Any questions? I think it's pretty clear that it's a formality that it came back here, but it had to. So could we have the resolution then?
Be it resolved that council endorse the modification to the official plan number 1 to the municipality of Dysart et al. Official plan D00-OP-2021-001 as presented by the County of Harbourne.
Mover and seconder, Nancy and Carmen. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Okay, good. So we'll get to you guys later then with quite a list here, so. Okay, so. Yeah, we got. Okay. Okay, Greg, you're on. Just press the button there so people can hear you. Yep. When the red light comes on, you're good to go.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Deputy Councilors. Appreciate the time this morning. Keep it brief. I'm here to talk to you about the roads at Stother Creek. I was actually here in October with the previous council. And if you want to just look at that picture that was handed out there, the picture of the subdivision. I would like to talk to you about assuming the roads in phase 1, which is everything south of the creek. Predominantly Brook Trout Run
And Stother Creek,
and
right?
Stother Creek Road. And you probably know the property, that's Ilman Road on the right hand side, and that white corner lot is Marky Brome's. But anyway, so I just like to ask that you assume the roads in phase 1, which is about 1.5 kilometers. And secondly, I'd like to talk to you about the road security that the municipality currently holds for both phase 1, which is south of the creek, and phase 2. Back in last summer, there's a little bit of a table below the picture of the map. I started this process of assuming the roads in lot 1 or in phase 1 back in June. And then we had Rob Camelon on the property several times through the summer. And August 14th, Fowler installed about 2,000 cubic meters of granular A on just the phase 1 roads. And just by way of the level of involvement that the municipality was providing support, like you'll see on September the 9th, that Mallory organized comments to come back from all of the departments in the municipality. So we have all those, and then Rob went and showed us the final 5 things that I needed to do there. And then we had a delegation to council, the official delegation to request assumption, but by that time, the council wasn't able to do anything because of the election that was pending. So since then, I was asked for a drainage plan, which I had scheduled for May, but then we had a bit of a hiccup because there was some question whether they were going to be assumed. And I was also asked for a surveyor certificate, which I did provide. So anyway, I would just ask that you consider assuming these roads. They have been brought up to the municipal standard, which we can talk about a little bit later, but we've got 6 inches of A gravel on everything. And as Mr. Camelon has said, he was confident with Fowler's installation. And that was actually, I actually contracted for more material than we needed, and we enlarged cul-de-sacs at either end of the roads on phase 1 at lot 20, which is on your left at the bottom of the creek, and at the north end near Keith Hodson's there next to lot 23. And Rob said, you know, to make this big and so on. So we put the extra material there, so there's a good turnaround. But anyway, just to go back and look at our agreement a little bit, you know, it's reasonable. You see the first large paragraph on the letter that I sent. Like, it is reasonable to say, well, all the roads in the subdivision need to be completed. But there's also other clauses within the agreement that give opportunity for the municipality to they're what I call the otherwise clauses. And I think that's if you turn over on the pages that I gave you, the one just past the map, you'll see down in item C there, 15C, the last part of that little paragraph says that the plan of subdivision by a bylaw, this is 15C, or otherwise at the earlier of the following. So there is opportunity for the municipality to assume the roads sooner than what is initially stated in 15A as being all the roads. So I just ask that you consider that.
What percent are built on, Greg?
32% of the lots are built on and owned by other people right now.
In phase 1 or both phases?
In the total of the lots, there's 13 homes owned by other owners.
Right.
And there are 41 lots. It works out to just, I think it's just under 32% or something like that. But anyway, so, and the lots that are built and sold are indicated by the yellow dots on the diagram, but don't, yeah. So anyway,
now where this stands right now, somebody said that this was out for peer review, or?
Yes, that was part of the work that I was going to do for the municipality this spring, because it wasn't asked for the draft plan approval till I think it was November, if that little table's correct. Yeah. So I couldn't get a drainage plan review in November. They said it'd have to wait. I had it scheduled for May, but then we backed away from that. But I'm certainly prepared, you know, over the next 3 months to provide whatever reviews are necessary. And I can have this company, which is a very large company from Moen Sound that does a lot of municipal work.
So you want to get the roads assumed before you got the drainage plan then?
No, sir. I was going to have it done in May, so the assumption could go forward. And I'm also aware that after everything's said and done, there's a peer review that I pay for that the municipality would be in,
Would-
like, okay.
It's probably
Yeah.
a couple of months away.
That's, yes, and that's, that's quite reasonable. I would say, is there any reason to do this? Well, to start with, if you look at the next few pages that I've given you there, there's a couple of schedules, and if you study those a little bit, it's pretty evident that the geographically speaking, phase one is very, it's all south of the creek. It's also in our agreement, it's very definitely separate from phase two. Different security, different roads, termination points are all expressed in the different schedules and so on. So and the other thing is I'm hoping for the benefit of the currently 13 and probably 17 residents there by the end of the summer, that the taxes that are coming in and also the taxes I've paid for the last 30 years would be kind of money in the coffers. And I think with new roads that the expenditure on the part of the municipality will be minimal. Obviously, the biggest expense would be plowing the roads, which is a kilometer and a half. And right now they're turning around on the property like it's a 3-point turn, where this will provide them a big cul-de-sac or a circular path to follow. So like just even for a goodwill gesture to the current residents on the property, obviously it would be beneficial to me just bringing this service, or you guys bringing this service, but I'd always like to communicate that this is a tremendous community and these counselors have moved forward with assuming the roads in part one, even though they could have said no, get it all done first, kind of thing.
Greg, when you were here the last time, I asked you about surfacing the roads. The
Yes.
reason I did that is that a policy was passed after you did the subdivision, obviously, that said all roads in the residential subdivision are to be surfaced. And I don't know where we go with that. You could ask for an exemption from that, I guess. Or,
Okay, well, I guess my question would be, and actually I've got something here that there's a fellow named in the MTO office in North Bay, and this schedule B36 is still current, even though it was written in 1983, I think it is. But basically, it's based upon the number of vehicles annually, the daily annual kind of thing. That's what's called the AADT, I think it is. And it's something that, even though, like my agreement with the municipality, which I would think would be what we would not be basing it on, rather than, more recent policy, but that could be discussed. But my agreement says the municipal standard B36, and I'm familiar with the Harbourne agreement, but it actually says paved roads. And I suspect it may be because of the amount of lots that are in there, like I don't know, it's 80 or maybe more lots. I'm not exactly sure, but I do know the word paved is there, whereas mine reiterates, I think, especially in Schedule D, if I recall, which I'm sorry, I didn't give you a copy of.
well, that's fine.
But it does refer several times through the agreement to the municipal standard according to the MTO, and then in Schedule D, it talks about the actual Schedule B36 that I've referenced here. So
Was Stother Creek after Albion or before?
Yeah, it was 4 years after, really great timing. So I just had to wait till it sold out before mine got going, I guess, something like that. But anyway, I wasn't
So,
any brighter then than I am now. So,
hey, we all are not any brighter. It's age.
yeah.
Okay, so I guess. So you,
So that's the one that I was going to talk about, the one request. The second request was the level of security that's currently being held
right,
at Stother. According to the agreement, I've accumulated now $100,000 in the municipal coffers being held for road security in reference to the first phase. Well, what I've trying to demonstrate here is that I've brought all those things up to date up to standard. There's still a further 4 lots, which are indicated by the red dots on your map. 4 lots in the second phase that are for lot security. And just by way of, everybody can use $100,000, I guess. I'm right now working on underground hydro, which is unbelievably expensive, and yet it's the best infrastructure because it's safe, it's out of harm's way kind of thing. But I could certainly use that 100,000, or if needs be, if you want to keep that 100,000, I would appreciate getting the 4 lots back. And keep the 100,000. I'd also say there's a few people who know how to build roads here. If you go into the subdivision, you'll see that the roads in phase 2 are about 80% virtually ready for the 6-inch minus. Like you can drive the north part there, not the best right now because it doesn't have but we've done all the clearing, all the shaping, all the ditching, and so on. There's just about 500 feet right near Keith Hodson's, which hasn't been built to, basically a substandard because it was actually the access to the pit area that we use on the property. So that's the 2 requests that I would have, and I really appreciate you folks listening to all this.
okay, well, we'll actually, we'll talk to Rob. Rob's sick right now. He's not here today.
Okay,
Talk to him about where we are with the peer review. And then we'll talk about the security and the 100,000 4 lots.
appreciate that. Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you for your time. Any
Sure.
questions?
So on the phase 2 that's not built, would you ensure that all construction traffic not travel the roads, like Brook Trail and Stother? If we assume them at some point, we would not want construction traffic going over them and pounding the
Yeah.
poo out of them?
I guess the only road I couldn't prevent them from doing that on would be Illman Road. Which has been in the municipal, hands for 100 years.
But you could post it or encourage it to the
Yeah.
contractors, right?
Absolutely. We do have, like, it would be minimal. We have about 4 lots remaining in phase 1. So there would be that traffic, but that's maybe minimal. The other thing that directive says that it refers to the amount of traffic at the time the roads are built. It doesn't really try to forecast. This whole thing about AADT is extremely complicated. They got all kinds of algorithms all over based upon 100 different factors that influence the amount of traffic. But I certainly hear you, Nancy, and we can certainly indicate, that the bulk of the heavy trucks go straight up. But as I say, we've got about 4 lots, I think, still to build with concrete foundations.
Greg, this road's still there, isn't it?
That's correct, yes.
So, yeah, so people I mean, you could come in here and go out there.
That's true, but.
Is there a culvert over that creek? or
Yes,
what?
there is. Yeah, and it's quite a brand new culvert, and it's part of the review too, Mr. Mayor. The culvert on Easements Road will be
Peer
looked at. Yeah, to make sure it's still doesn't look like some other
Good.
old trucks that have.
Okay, any other questions for Greg? Okay, I think we're good. Thank
All
you,
right.
sir.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
By the way, I don't own any property on Musquabbie. Oh, resolution.
Be it resolved, the council acknowledges receipt of the delegation from Greg Brown regarding road assumption and road securities for the Stother Creek development.
Mover and seconder, Tammy and Nancy, all in favor? Carried. Why don't we take a 10-minute break? Can you shut us down, Lori? Well, there's Lori. Oh, okay. Oh, he's here. Okay, well, we'll deal with him. How are you? Good.
If you'd like a chair, there's one behind
Yeah,
there.
yeah, sure. And when you want to speak there, just press on, get the red light on.
Alrighty.
Okay. Okay, so maybe we'll just let you start.
All right, well, start by saying thank you for having me. I can push it.
There we go. Start by saying thanks for having me here today. So I'm here to speak upon the proposed deer feeding bylaw. And hoping that there's going to be some clarification. From watching the last council meeting over Zoom or whatever it was. We did hear that they'd like to get it into effect because the flowers are going to be coming out. And you're going to be getting calls about deer eating flowers. So to me, that sounds like it is an issue of deer eating flowers. And that is one of the reasons. Seems not to be a very valid reason to push a bylaw through. Because if we're worried about in-town deer being not natural, well, flowers in Halliburton aren't natural. So just an interesting aspect there. We're all gardeners. We all love doing it. The second part was safety collisions with deer and vehicles. 90% of the roads in Ward 1 are 50 kilometers an hour. So if we're worried about deer strikes in that area, then I don't believe it would be the deer's fault for getting hit at 50K.
They don't all stay in Ward 1 though.
No, they don't. But they do travel. Deer have a roughly a home territory of about 2.5 square kilometers.
Yeah.
So the deer in town
I don't know
are
how they travel.
in town deer. Yeah. The other side of it is if we'd like to renaturalize these deer, I think the best approach we can have is like a 3-year plan. I'm not actually against renaturalization, but I think a cold turkey stop of deer feeding is going to be very detrimental and you'll be getting a lot more calls of mass starvation. So I did have a good conversation with a biologist and he said that the summertime, they're not going to die. They're going to be just fine. There's lots of stuff for people to eat or the deer to eat. It's going to come when we have a hard winter and you guys will be getting a lot of calls and a lot of flack for the deer starving to death. And the whole reason that we're sitting here debating this today is a reaction of a law that was put through about 20 years ago of why the deer are in town. And I think we all know that moratorium that we're speaking of.
About the wolves.
Yeah. So a little bit of clarification would be great. And if the overall health of the deer is what we're worried about, then I think we need to look at it and doing it a better way. And a better way overall for the town, really, if we're.
So tell me, if you say a 3-year plan, what makes them okay after 3 years?
Well, it wouldn't be a cold turkey plan after 3 years. It would be something that you would have to discuss with wildlife biologists and actually figure out the best way to move the deer. Because you can move deer, again, according to this biologist, about 30% every year. So if you're looking to move the deer out of town, you'd have to find a spot out of town that is safe.
Back to the deer yard where they were.
If you want to move them all the way back up to the deer yards, but if you're worried about strikes in town, you would need to move them slowly, about 30% per year out of town.
Yeah, what I'm hearing, and I don't know if I'm hearing right, but I'm hearing there's 60 to 70 deer. Within a kilometer and a half of town.
I would say there's probably more than that.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's a scary thing. I don't know if you know or not, but Quebec just banned feeding because there's disease going among.
There's disease among all animals. If we're worried about disease, then we should be more concentrating on pigeons, raccoons. There's about 3 pathogens through.
You're changing the subject a little bit.
No, not really. But if we're worried about pathogens and disease coming through deer, like chronic wasting and stuff like that, them being in town, them not being in town isn't really going to affect chronic wasting. If we're worried about their fecal matter, there's 3 diseases, roughly 3. That can be passed on to humans, and 27 in pigeons and more in raccoons.
Well, we're getting rid of the pigeon for.
Which is great, which is a fantastic idea.
Do you think that's an issue when you got so many deer?
So the deer tick is actually, again, according to this biologist, is more able to transport on the white-footed deer mouse than actual deer. Deer aren't a great host for the actual deer tick, which is kind of funny that it's called the deer tick. They're actually their best host is the white-footed deer mouse. And we do have a lot of them here in town. And unfortunately, I don't think there's going to be much that you can do, getting off topic, about ticks. They're here and they're here to stay.
Of course, people are concerned because they got pets and they let them out in the yard. And
absolutely. And I understand that you guys have a bylaw about animals and vaccinations and that. So if the animal is vaccinated and taken care of properly, your possibility of having a health effect from a tick is very minimal.
Yeah. Tell me why people feed them in town. Like what's motivates that? The beauty of the animals and the safety of them, or?
A lot of people love to just look at them. A lot of people, as myself, have moved up here from the city because of the wildlife, because of the country, because it is beautiful up here. And a lot of people do feed the deer.
I understand in the rural areas. I understand that it's natural.
Well, not everybody has the opportunity to have a rural area. Sometimes they do need to live in town. Sometimes a lot of people that live in town are older and they need to have in-town accessibility. And feeding deer does probably bring them a little bit of joy every day.
Oh, I understand that. They're beautiful animals. I got them at my place too, but I don't feed them. Anyway, the other issue, I guess, is that since COVID, gardening, local gardening, residential gardening has gone up 50%.
Oh, yeah.
That's the stat. So how do you garden in town when you got a deer? You need an 8-foot fence.
No, you don't need an 8-foot fence. Actually, the most effective deer deterrent is an electric fence, and it is perhaps the cheapest. We do not have a bylaw yet against electric fencing. And I do understand that we actually do have some bylaws in certain areas of town about fencing. So that kind of seems like a holdback to somebody that would want to have some deer protection to be able to put it up. Electric fencing is the cheapest. It's effective. It's temporary, which is fantastic. It can be taken down. And it's really not hideous because you don't see it. There's regulations around electric fencing, and we can get into that later. And if somebody wants to have a garden in town, I have a garden. We make a livelihood off of gardening. We have a fence. It's really, and it's not 8 foot tall. It's maybe 5 foot at best.
And they don't jump over.
No.
Well, they will. I think you're hungry.
Well, and they're going to be hungry if we cold turkey stop feeding deer.
But they're going to stay in town for a year or two anyway.
I would say your quickest, if you want to renaturalize, your quickest is going to be 3 years, but expect more because you'll have to get people on board to do it. And there'll have to be a good plan.
Make it sound easy.
It's not going to be easy, but if the concern and the outlook that the township wants to put out there is it's the health of the animal, then cold turkey is not the way to do it, because we do have winter here, and some winters, this winter luckily was not a hard winter, but we do have winters in Canada that are terrible. And that is when they need the feed. We have 20 generations of deer in Halliburton. that use that supplementary feed. Yeah.
Okay.
And it is a hard one for me to say here because I'm sure most of you know that I own a feed store in
Yeah,
town. And the people that come in, they're passionate about what they do. I know there was an article not that long ago about, oh, we just feed corn, oh, we just do this and it's bad for the deer. A lot of what we bring in the wintertime is deer nutrition. It's a product for deer feed. A lot of people go to the extreme of peeling the carrots for the deer. So it's not that the township doesn't care and that they're recklessly feeding just to feed. There's a lot of passion in this town about the deer, about wildlife. And that is one of the big reasons why we're here still and we like this town. And
it's an issue that certainly divides the community.
it definitely is going to be, you're going to have some very loud people that are very opinionated
And a
about.
majority too, I would say. But anyway, we'll have to deal with that. That's it. So what we're going to do is look at it again at the boundaries.
Mhm.
And see if maybe there's a more select area that we.
So boundaries are great, but I really don't think by having a cold turkey approach that you're gonna have any positive outcome from it.
So
Cold turkey feeding anything, like, I don't know if you've ever smoked, but try going cold turkey. There's no good
actually, I
result from
did
that.
smoke and I threw them in the fireplace.
Yeah, well, you're stronger than a deer.
Well, I hope
Stronger
so.
than a deer. But I really strongly recommend that you guys have a look and sit down with biologist, at least one, maybe somebody that knows how to move deer and knows how to
Who would pay for that?
I bet you that if you were to put it out there, you would have more than one biologist that would do it pro bono. Because you get into things like that for animal
Yeah.
well-being.
Because you want to make them healthy.
Yeah.
Matt, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, just a couple of comments there. Of course, this is my word and I've got all the phone calls on both sides of it. So this is the pinch that councillors face, stuck right in the middle of it. But on the same note, prior to the awareness that we have now, earlier on, people were complaining that deer were crapping on their lawns and
They are.
kind of running their dogs around and eating their plants and everything else. So, we massaged the bylaw a couple of times and all of a sudden it surfaced that we get, the other side of it. And we all know the wolves drove the deer into town and they're becoming, I'm gonna say, climatized to the feeding habits and going door to door and getting a belly full and sleeping around. But on the same note, if there's a 3-year plan to work them back out of town, to me, we're gonna spend, if we do it, 3 years to get them out. Then the wolves are gonna start pushing them back in. And to me, that's gonna be a seesaw thing. So is there any way we can, it's gonna sound outlandish, that there's something that we could put in like a wolf bylaw to start getting rid of wolves or something like that at our geyser level? We do it as a bylaw in the township or the county, or it's gonna be a township in ours. But that, to me, that's the only way we're gonna mitigate this, because if we hear biologists say, yeah, we're gonna start putting winter feed out when it's necessary. Say we stop summer feeding because there's stuff to eat. Winter feeding, we start feeding them, in increments outside of town, based on what you just said, and get them out that way. But on the same note, wolves will start pushing them back in. So to me, you're kind of bailing a boat out with a hole in it. You know what I mean? So
The predators in Harbourne have become excessive. And they're in town and I can.
exactly, but it's going to get worse. Like,
But it's gonna get to the point where we're not gonna be worried about the deer when there's dogs and
cats and everything
cats
else.
and
Yeah.
if anybody has small livestock, chickens and stuff like that in town.
Right.
But it's the deer that's bringing them in. That's a natural feature that wolves attracted to deer. That's what they.
Wolves are attracted to prey. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what the prey is.
Yeah, but they like the deer.
Yeah, they also like the huge
I
population
know
of
there was
squirrels.
right around on Highland Street there was.
Oh, we have them at the store. We see them run up and down Mallard Street quite often.
You're not allowed to travel.
So only certain ones now. We got very little place we can fish.
Well, it sounds to me like we really got a problem.
It's interesting that Pat just touched on about the summertime feeding and stuff. So wondered if there was a way like, and that come from the biologist, you said that, so if there was a way, maybe we could step something up in the certain months in the summertime. Obviously the winter time, people's lawns and stuff wouldn't be as affected as.
Interestingly, if we want to talk about deer feces, it's one of the few fecal matter poo, however you want to call it, that can actually go directly to a lawn without having to be cooked in a manure pile. It's super high in nitrogen, and it can be directly sown, which is kind of interesting. Yeah.
You're a good salesman.
Well, you still should need the forest gloss set, but it's
I'm just only kidding. Okay, so your point, Barry, was,
Well,
I mean, we're still feeding them in the summer, let's be honest.
Their food, like right now, I can drive around and see where people are putting feed out right now.
Yeah.
So what I found interesting was that, yeah, maybe we could stop it for the summer months or the spring months and you don't start it again until snow flies or something, or we know they're going to be in a little bit of trouble. And that might help with the transition like you're talking about for the 3-year period. Just seems like an easier way to
so
get them out of here.
I would say that a majority of our customers that purchase deer feed drop off in the summer months because, again, they do have the deer's best interest in mind. And the deer go back to eating browse and buds and raspberry leaves. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
And what they prefer to eat too, they are ruminators. So corn in a ruminator's stomach is not ideal. Oats and stuff, they're okay. But they are ruminators at the end of the day. So that's what they're designed to eat. And they do prefer it. But I would say most of the deer feed sales drop drastically during the summer.
Yeah, I would hope people would stop feeding them when they can get natural food.
So what you're saying here is if we stop feeding them, the deer are gonna just die from starvation.
Yeah, we do not have the feed in town, if we're gonna look at the map that was provided, to support that population. And that is unfortunate.
So I mean, nobody wants to see that happen for sure. Maybe some people do, but I'd say a majority of people wouldn't be that cruel. But I think that you're talking about, like relocating the deer, which is, it'd be nice to say going back in the woods.
Mm.
But like most Carm and Pat and Barry are saying here, the wolves aren't gonna go away. And I mean, the wolf population is just multiplying as we
It's not,
speak, and so we can do everything we want for the deer. If we don't get rid of the wolves, the deer will never go back in the woods.
it's not a perfect plan, and I wish I had a solution for the wolves. Well, I do, but I wish I had a solution for the town for the wolves. But there's no perfect outcome in this situation. You're gonna have people that are wolf lovers, coyote lovers, animal lovers in general, and then you're gonna have people that want nothing to do.
So the moral of the story is if we hadn't started feeding them in town, we wouldn't have had the problem.
Yeah, they're just, their populations would have been lower to suit the amount of feed that is
Right.
available in the town. Now, the feed in town does every year, like the natural feed does go down every year because people do plant non-deer happy crops or plants and everything, which is kind of funny. So it does go down, but we would have a lower population, but not as high as we have.
Yeah, I don't know how about, they say there's plants that the deer won't eat, but we planted them and the deer eat them.
Well, you can get a dog to eat an onion if he's hungry enough.
That's right, if you're hungry, you go out.
So like, is it true like there's not many deer in, say, like Harcourt Park?
I can't give a reference to that. Yeah.
No.
Even the surrounding area. For the wolves and shit.
So I mean, like, I'm not, I mean, I'm not a hunter. I feed deer where I live. I live quite a ways away from the village, of course. But I mean, I don't think the problem's gonna be resolved until you think about what you're gonna do with the wolves.
It's the coyotes are the problem.
Wolves and coyotes. So we, as I think a lot of you know, we have a farm in Eagle Lake.
Yes.
And wolves and coyotes are a huge problem. It's nothing for us to hear and see them on a nightly basis. And it's not only an issue for the deer, but it's an issue for livestock too.
Yeah, exactly. Would be concerned. Yeah,
Yep.
it's livestock, horses and everything. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I want to see is back in the day, remember Percy Lake was all the deer yards?
Yeah.
Well, the ministry fed them. Well, the only reason they quit feeding them is the deer got out of there because they couldn't stay there no more. And they had to come out, they only had to get where it was safer around houses, and they just kept moving and moving until they found a safer place. And you never see a deer up there in the winter no more. So how are you going to get them to go back when they don't know to go there? Right? They've
Yeah.
never been there in their life. They don't know enough to travel that distance if we quit feeding them.
You have to increment your feeding stations.
You'd have to keep enticing them that way.
You'd have to cure the wolf issue, and you'd have to have a very solid plan, very well thought out plan that the town sees the benefit at the end of the day. Because benefit and self-enjoyment are going to be two different things, and they're going to be hard for you to implement.
Okay, anything else?
Just another note, just a memory of Pete Curry and I used to chat, and Pete belongs to the land trust, if I remember right, but
Yeah.
I don't know what the yearly increment was, but he said if you don't curtail wolf population because it's an apex predator in our area, he said over 10 years, the wolves will decimate or take over, multiply deer, then the beaver, then the rabbit, then the squirrel, and then they get the mange, and then they die, and then the whole system starts up again.
Yeah.
So it takes 25 years or 20 years for it to come back to life. So is that right? Did you hear that?
They collared them in Algonquin Park. The coyotes are with their wolves with the mange, and they made the winner even with the mange. It didn't kill them.
Huh.
That's what they first thought, though, Pat. They were killing them, and it was. But now that cycle hasn't stopped.
Right.
So the mange hasn't stopped.
It's like the different strains of COVID.
Well, no, and what they were doing, he told me this too, is they were going around with helicopters dropping bait stations with ivermectin in them with meat.
Yeah.
Where the mange was going, and that's why we don't see mange no more, because the MNR cured the mange per se as much as they could by inoculating the animals, the coyotes.
Right. So to me, it's a maintenance issue. Like when the railway came through, I can remember my dad telling me that they got 5 cents for a beaver tail and a muskrat tail, because the beaver dam, the beavers, and that's how more or less the beavers got here. They traveled north, from what I understand, up the railway line, and they would put a dam up, and of course the dam would break and wash the railway line out. You'd have a derailment. But on the same level, I'm getting at, it's whether it's a wolf or a beaver or a pigeon or a goose. If you don't maintain the numbers, then they become a health problem, but also a threat.
Kill them, they'll fend themselves off.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a big issue.
Yeah.
Where's the ministry no resorts when we need them? Jesus. Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay.
And have a good day.
Okay. Take care. I think Carl's here. Can we take a 10-minute break? Lori,
We have a resolution to receive.
yeah, resolution to receive that.
Be it resolved, the council acknowledges receipt of the delegation from Philip Primavera, owner of Halliburton Feed and Seed, expressing concerns for the proposed deer feeding bylaw.
So I guess we can come back and talk about this a little later if we want to. Mover and seconder, Nancy and Carm, all in favor? Carried.
It is on the agenda later.
Yeah. I think Rob and Carl are there, but we can bring them back up in a few minutes, eh? Yeah, you can shut her down. there. Okay. Okay, Harcourt Community Center, any report there?
I went to a meeting and I think maybe a couple weeks ago, and they're recruiting new people, so that's really good, and they have lots of things going on, so.
Good.
Moving along.
Okay, thank you. West Guilford, anything, Carl?
Yeah, I was there last night, Murray, and they were with Canada Day coming up and all the everything scheduled and coming good. They were wondering if the Dyser was going to help out with fireworks again this year. I guess last year they donated $3,500 towards it because it's over $8,000 they spend on fireworks now.
Yeah, and they do a good job.
So
Is that on in the budget, Barb? West Guilford Community Center, it's part of their budget, I would think.
Sorry, I'll have to confirm that. I don't recall offhand. I know last year what we did is we channeled some of our special events funds to the firework display at West Guilford, and I think it was about $3,500.
Okay. So we could do that again?
Yes, that is the option. Yeah, for council.
I think we should do
okay,
it.
because it's only fireworks and Dyser
Yeah.
that everybody comes to, so they'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it's well done too.
Mhm.
Everybody in agreement with that?
Maybe a motion here.
Do you have a resolution on that? Or do you need one?
I'll do one quickly, just see how.
Okay.
Sorry, Barbara, where did you say to fund that from?
So we can draw those funds from the special events budget, which is kind of a general pool for different events throughout the year.
Well, while she's writing that resolution, can we do, Nancy, do you have a report on Rails End?
Yep, the minutes are there from their last meeting, and we actually have another meeting tomorrow night. They have their summer festival. They've got close to 100 vendors. So, it's a pretty busy time for them.
It is
It's a big event. It draws a lot of people into the area.
You know, it does, it's huge. Okay, we'll do that resolution. Okay.
Be it resolved, the council approve a contribution of $3,500 towards Canada Day West Guilford fireworks to be drawn from special events budget.
Mover, Karma, obviously, and Nancy, all in favor? Carry. Okay, now the Rails End Gallery resolution.
Be it resolved, the council approves the receipt of the April 2023 Rails End Gallery and Arts Center report.
Mover and seconder. Pat and Nancy. Sorry, Walt, I missed you again. Okay. So that's carried. BIA, Pat,
Yeah, Murray, for just kind of been out of the loop here for some personal reasons, but for the BIA, you know, that the fundraising for the park's going great. On that note, and again, just haven't sat down with Harvest Halliburton and see where they're at, but I'll bring a report back for sure next meeting.
okay.
The BIA send their minutes directly.
Okay, it's good to know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Source water protection. Walt. Upper Trent, you haven't met yet, Barry?
Yeah, actually, we did on Friday. We had a meeting
Okay.
there. It was about a good 2.5 hour meeting. It was.
Oh, good.
So anyway, they're coming with a video and I got to, they told us what's going to be in the video. And it's very informative. It's not for publication yet, but it's getting close and I want to make sure all you guys see that, so you're aware I got my eyes opened a lot in this meeting. The dams were never built really for flood control back years and years ago. They do try to help what they can,
Yeah.
but it's not, we all seem to kind of lay the blame on like, you know, you're flooding out this and you're flooding out that. Well, there's a lot more to it than just that.
Sure, it's a complex system.
It's very complex. They're rebuilding some dams all over the place right now, and I just pulled this up to make sure I was saying the right figures, but since 2014-15, they spent over around $850 million on redoing some dams and infrastructure and stuff. So it's pretty major, it's a pretty major deal. So anyway, once that video becomes it's all done, I'll make sure I get that to you, and it's short. I think he said it's going to be like 15 minutes long or 14 minutes long or something like that. It's going to be it'll be really well worth you guys watching, and you'll be able to likely answer a few questions that people put to you.
Yeah, everybody blames the Trent for the water levels all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can't control it.
Absolutely. And you know what, like they have everything down to it. Like they got every day, like they can go back and give you dates. Like they say it rained. They were worried about the last rainfall that we had. Like that's how close it is right now. Is that they get that 25 millimeters of rain, whatever we were expecting, and they were watching that like extremely close.
Thank you. That's a good report. Okay, next is a letter from Jerry Walker to expand the sewage plant. I don't know if that's that simple or not, is it? I know it's not going to be enough money. So what do we want to do with that? Get Rob to.
He's also asking there if we don't, for a holding tank, or is that part of the?
Yeah. I think the sewage people would have to answer that. But when Rob's not here, I'd like to know what the issue with expanding the sewer is.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we need any amendments to the certificate or anything. Yeah, I think it does need an EA, which is going to take a long time. Pat?
Yeah, Murray, just kind of going over his letter here. If my request for the sewer connection for the fall is not feasible, could I request permission for a holding tank to be installed for my new building till the line could be installed? So, yeah, I would say would ask Rob first what his angle is on it, but on the same note, in terms of that building and what it's going to be used for, I think it's good. It's 3 or 4 jobs in the community, and it's good. I think it's electrical distribution.
Oh, yeah, it's a good,
it's a good deal.
opportunity. Yeah.
It's a great thing for the community. So if we can assist him or help him out, number one, say for instance, if the sewer line was a problem, then try and get him a secondary, like a tank, even to get him going. And if there's a way to get a septic there, whatever the long-term plan would be, then.
And we know about that he can do this in the short term and then.
Do the tank first and that gets them going.
Yeah.
Or that might be fine for him anyway, if there's only 2 or 3 people there and
Yeah.
you just have to pump it,
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
If there's only 2 or 3 people, you might have to pump it 3 times a year.
Sure.
Okay, right.
We'd have to, like the line itself, like when we discuss the line, yeah, I guess we need to talk to Rob, but I mean, we need to know, is that going to expand further on?
Yeah, because he was talking about Bull and then somebody else in the industrial.
I mean, how far does this going to go? Like,
Right.
it's just, it's all fine and dandy. I'm just making sure that when the
Have to be
line,
sized right.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, to maybe hold 50 or 60 or 75% of the whole industrial park. I don't know, but
Okay, so we're going to.
it's not. But I kind of understand what he's saying too, is that there might be 25 more properties eventually come on the, I don't know.
Yeah. Anything else there on that? And we'll get the answer from Rob there. Resolution?
Be it resolved. Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the correspondence from Jerry Walker requesting a sewage line expansion to service his property located at 30 Industrial Park Road.
Mover and seconder, Walt and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Okay, next is the rental rates, and think that was the direction we gave Rob at the last meeting when he had the review here. Barbara, do you have a comment on that?
Just based on the report here, Rob is projecting a budget shortfall of about $300,000. And so it's the recommendation that staff monitor the transportation budget and we deal with it at the end of 2023. And if there is a huge deficit within that budget, that we would draw from the working fund reserve.
Okay. Okay, so we have a resolution on that. Meanwhile, Tamara's got something else going on.
Oh, I'm just writing up what Barbara said. Be it resolved, the council received this report concerning internal rental rates for municipal vehicles and equipment as information, and the bylaw 2023-45 being a bylaw to establish internal rental rates for municipal vehicles and equipment be read a first, second, and third time passed and the corporate seal attached here too.
Mover and seconder. Pat and Nancy, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Award recommendations for the RFT various pathways. I think that's close enough to budget that we can do that.
Yeah, it's actually $106,000 lower than the bids we got last year.
Okay.
They're looking at late summer work on this because it'll have to work around the construction on 118.
Yeah, that's going to be all summer long, 7 days a week. Okay, have a resolution there.
Be it resolved that council award the work in RFT 2023 PW02 being a tender for the provision of various pathway improvements to Premier North Limited for a cost of $353,844 excluding HST.
Yeah, seems a lot for sidewalks anyway. Mover and seconder. Carmen, Tammy, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Andrea, Parks and Recreation.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Sorry, I wasn't sure. I'm wearing earphones, so I wasn't sure if they were working there. I just have an update for you. Our program registration has gone well. Ball hockey starts on Tuesday next week, and the 2 younger groups are full. And our soccer registration, since writing the report, we've actually had to cap the youth registration just to make sure we have enough jerseys, coaches, etc. So there's 203 kids registered for that. And then our women's registration, we're at 30 at the moment. So we can still accept more people for that. So those are good program numbers. And we also have to take into account the capacity of the fields and everything and what we can accommodate with given the resources that we have. So that's about the programs. And then I received a request from Barb Hall asking the municipality to install a memorial bench over by the tennis courts in honor of Art Ouellette, who many of you may know that he was a longtime volunteer and caretaker of the tennis courts. When I first started working in Halliburton or for Dysart, if there was a question about tennis, I was always directed to talk to Art, find out the answer from Art Ouellette. So she's requesting that the municipality puts in a bench in recognition of him. So we do have a memorial bench and tree program, which people approach the municipality and purchase a bench to honor a loved one or to even somebody who's still alive. To recognize a favorite spot. Quite often those benches end up in Head Lake Park. There's also a tree program, and we have a few trees, one over by the bandshell and a couple more that are going in this spring that people have purchased to commemorate loved ones. So, but this is a request that came about, and so I added it to the report for council to decide.
There's no question about it. He looked after the tennis courts for 20 years. He opened them up, he closed them, he reported any damage, and he was like a staff member right there. So
I learned a lot from him about them. I can tell you that much. He was good at taking me under his wing and teaching me what he could.
So we'll go ahead with that, a bench.
We have the benches. We have a bench in the shed. So it's just a matter of,
we don't have to buy one, so let's do it.
No, we have one.
Everybody okay with that? Okay, anything else, Andrea? Just keep raising money because that rubber mat there is going to cost a lot more than chips are.
And I don't have, as Bob had mentioned on Friday, he probably wouldn't have a price. He thought maybe by Tuesday evening, so I haven't heard anything back from him yet. So I'll prepare something for the next council meeting. That being said, I won't be in attendance because I'll be at the health and safety training, which is all day. But I'll prepare a report so there's something for discussion.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, there's no sense doing it without doing it right. So spending $700,000, you might as well do it right. Okay, Andrea, thank you.
You're welcome.
There was no questions there? Resolution?
Be it resolved, the council received the recreation program report update as information, and further the council approves the purchase of a memorial bench in memory of Art Ouellette to recognize him as a longstanding volunteer with the tennis club.
On mover and seconder, Nancy and Tammy, I guess. All in favor? Carried. Okay, now we're bringing on Carl and Rob.
Good morning, council.
Good morning, Rob.
So we'll
Morning.
start with the site alteration bylaw discussion report. So with this report, I've essentially developed the inner workings of a bylaw for site alteration. So as mentioned in the report, the municipality is going to be maintained under the county bylaw, the tree preservation bylaw, while the other member municipalities are going to go under the new site alteration tree preservation bylaw. So with that, we're going to look at some options for Dysart to basically create our own site alteration bylaw. So I have prepared a presentation for council to go through to give them a sense of what I've been envisioning for this and what the items that we're going to be seeking public input on. So if we can just keep all questions until the end, because I want to steer anybody who wants to complete that questionnaire to this presentation so that they can educate themselves before filling out that questionnaire.
Okay.
All right, so basically starting the presentation. So basically the topics we're going to discuss today. So the proposed format of the bylaw, shoreline setbacks, environmental protection zones, developed lots versus undeveloped lots, and restrictions within the setbacks. And also encouraging restoration of the shoreline back to the natural state. And we'll see why that's important throughout this presentation. So the proposed format of the bylaw. So we want to establish restrictions and permissions rather than permitting requirements. So with our current staffing, we don't really have the capacity or the time to deal with permits for any site alterations. But I think putting in restrictions and permissions only will fit what our needs for sure. So if there's no permit requirements, then we have to allow for an application for exemptions from any of the restrictions in the bylaw. And I'll mention a couple of instances when that's going to be important through this presentation. Again, we're going to require remediation plans for non-compliance. And we're going to include a series of penalties. So orders are what we would issue against the property owners themselves. And that is going to play a big part. We are going to be developing an orders bylaw that's going to basically have council acknowledge orders and what we do with orders in the future. Admit penalties, so that's basically the educational costs of us going out to the site to educate the homeowners if it's not a serious infraction. Set fines, so we want to introduce set fines. Because that I could see as being a significant deterrence for the contractors that are on site. Because if we go to a site, we see people altering the site, not in compliance with the bylaw, we can issue set fines right to those contractors. And then restraining orders. So that's something for a very serious matter where we need to take them to court to get it resolved and have the courts basically give a court order requiring that the property come into compliance. So shoreline setbacks, again, a big thing that we've I've seen at the county level is that we're not going to debate the science on this one, and I'll tell you why that's not necessary. So basically, we hear anything between 3 meters and 30 meters for effective treatment. So our municipal guiding documents also require preservation of the natural visual characterizations of the shorelines. So again, it's not only about effective treatment, it's about, you know, requiring that preservation of the shoreline, that visual characteristic. So let's review the regulations already in place and see what we can do. So see what our limitations are right now and see what we can work within and see how this bylaw can fit those current regulations. So the first one we want to talk about is the official plan. So this is basically our overall guiding document for the municipality for land use. So basically, Section 132 affecting the public sector. So upon approval of this plan, the Planning Act requires any bylaws passed by the council of the municipality to conform with this plan with certain exceptions. So basically, we have to comply with the official plan with regards to any bylaws that we pass in the municipality. And Section 512, this is where we talk about development of shorelands will be set back to maintain the shoreline's natural characteristics, quality, and integrity, preserve its natural visual characteristics. So this is just where that requirement comes from. There's a further requirement in 512 of the official plan. So you know, this is quite lengthy, but it's worth reading the whole thing. So all owners of shoreline lots will be encouraged to leave the lands within the shoreline setbacks substantially undisturbed. So again, we have the word encouraged in that first sentence. Additionally, where the shoreline setback has been disturbed by past activities, the owners will be encouraged to restore the setback to a natural state. Soil and vegetation within the setback should be disturbed as little as possible to preserve the impression from the lake that the shoreline is undeveloped. Clearing should be restricted to the minimum required for access. So again, those are the requirements out of our official plan. Again, that's our overall guiding document. Then we get into our zoning bylaw, which is essentially our day-to-day document that is based on the official plan. So the official is, our zoning bylaw, it mentions shoreline vegetation buffer. And this states that shoreline vegetation buffer will apply to the water setback of a lot. A shoreline vegetation buffer will be maintained in a healthy condition and in compliance with the provisions outlined in the tree cutting and tree preservation bylaw passed by the county. So again, that's a very important statement because we acknowledge the bylaw that the county has, that it's going to be, we have to keep within those provisions outlined in that tree cutting bylaw. And again, our shoreline vegetation buffer is defined in the bylaw as a natural area adjacent to the high water mark of a water body, maintained in a natural state with native vegetation, or were disturbed by past activity, established and restored to a natural state using native vegetation. So our shoreline vegetation buffer within the zoning bylaw, so setbacks for the shoreline, this is actually has a table that tells you exactly what these setbacks are for the shoreline vegetation buffer. And again, we see anything between 20 meters to 30 meters. So our zoning bylaw further goes into structures that are permitted within the water setback. And these include things like awnings, flagpoles, garden trellises, retaining walls, stairways, walkways, decks and patios up to 20 square meters in size, fences less than 1.2 meters in height, and plumbing such as your water intake lines. So these structures are permitted within the water setback. So this is going to be important as we move forward. So just remember some of these items. So then we get into the shoreline tree preservation bylaw. And so this bylaw, section 2, essentially it applies to all property 30 meters measured from the high water mark. So again, we're looking at 30 meters for the shoreline tree preservation bylaw. We saw 20 to 30 meters within our zoning bylaw. So again, this is where that number, again, it's very easy to basically say, okay, well, let's use 30 meters, but we'll see what that means. So the bylaw, the shoreline tree preservation bylaw, also exempts clearings, clearing a 5-meter wide path to gain access to the water, clearing for buildings and 5 meters around these buildings. So buildings are things that you would need a building permit for. So basically your cottage, accessory buildings, those types of things that you need building permit for. And clearing for structures and 3 meters around those structures. So we mentioned what the structures were in the zoning bylaw. So how does this apply to site alteration? So we cannot complete landscaping or site alteration within an area that requires a shoreline vegetation buffer. At the very most, a site alteration bylaw may permit site alteration around these areas. So anywhere where you're essentially permitted to clear the vegetation, that's the maximum that we're allowed to basically permit site alteration. In my vision, I can't see any other way to permit additional site alteration. But so again, clearing around 5 meters, the 5 meter wide path, clearing around buildings, 5 meters around these buildings, and clearing around structures and 3 meters around these structures. So again, decks, patios, walkways, those types of things. So this does not apply to lands adjacent to fish habitat areas. Now, fish habitat areas defined in the shoreline tree preservation as basically the spawning grounds, food source, supply, those types of things. So trying to find information about fish habitat areas was a little difficult, but there's M&R mapping that shows fish spawning areas, and that's about the closest I can find. So we do have mapping for fish spawning areas. And so if we look at an example, we have Head Lake here, and all the yellow is essentially fish spawning areas. So in this area here, we have basically walleye in this area for fish spawning. We have muskie up in this area, up in the north part of Head Lake. We have big mouth bass along this area here, and this is adjacent to the college and the museum property. So again, it's all naturalized along here. This area here is the Halbium subdivision, where again, it's private property and a lot of this is cleared. But this is more big mouth bass spawning area. Back down here, we have more bass spawning areas and then walleye under the bridge. So again, we do have some fish spawning areas here. So Hay Lake is probably the most stringent that we have fish spawning areas adjacent to shore. Coleman, or sorry, was it Coleman Lake? Yeah, was it Coleman Lake? No, not Coleman Lake.
No, Coleman.
Is it Coleman? Yeah, so
I think it was Coleman.
Yeah. So anyway, there's another lake that has a lot of spawning areas adjacent to the shore for muskie. And but again, it was a developed lake, and there's not really a lot that we can control there because it's already developed. There's a few areas around Elephant Lake, those types of things that again aren't developed at the moment. Those are things that we can control for around fish spawning areas. So yeah, so for fish spawning areas, that's one thing that I doesn't seem to be well regulated at the provincial level, other than indicating when you can fish for, they protect fish spawning areas by indicating when you can start fishing for that species of fish. But there's nothing else that really tells us how to protect that. And even looking at the county's new bylaw, even though they defined fish habitat, fish spawning areas, there's no regulation for anything to protect fish spawning areas. So again, it's something that we can protect in the bylaw if we want to protect it. So it's one of the questions that we do ask in our questionnaire. All right, so moving on to EP areas, environmental protection zones. So the current regulations, so activity is restricted in zoning bylaw. It permits conservation, reforestation, or other similar passive uses, which provides for the preservation and management of the natural environment. Also permits stairways, walkways, boardwalks, or landings not more than 1.5 meters wide through that EP zone. So let's review a couple of examples of EP zones. So before we do that, sorry, all the green in this map is EP zones within our municipality. So there's a lot of green in there. So there's a lot of EP zones. And again, we currently have no regulations for site alteration within EP zones. So anything that we do is going to be better than what we currently have. So let's look at this example here. So all the green area here. So we have the blue. This is sorry. This is a M&R defined water course. So that water course is very important. But the green area is essentially the EP zone that's around that. So this is essentially going to be a low-lying area. And then we see all the other colors. They mean different things. But let's look at what this looks like in real life. So again, we have this area here. We could see the water course going through this area. This brown line here is essentially a 5-meter elevation difference. So we could see the next one over here. So those represent 5-meter elevation differences. So we can see it almost mirrors around where the green area goes. So basically that's an area that's subject to flooding. And again, we could see all the past activity that's been through here. So first we start off with this railroad. So again, that was filled in, which probably affected where this drainage course goes. Next came the highway. So that was filled in, to create this roadway. We have this ball diamond up here that, a soccer pitch that was filled in to create this higher area. And we have the municipal parking lot for the medical center up here. So again, all these things are being filled in, and there's no regulation. And this property over here got a bad rap for filling in this pond area, even though there's no regulations for it. So again, there's an opportunity to create some regulations for EP to restrict filling in EP zones. And again, this is something where that permission for an exemption where somebody can request an exemption. So again, if they have studies that show that if they fill in this area, it's not going to affect anything. It's not going to have a negative effect on neighboring properties or the natural environment, those types of things. So that's what we'd be looking for with regards to an exemption if somebody wants to fill in an EP zone, if we create restrictions for EP zones. Again, just a reminder that we have no current restrictions. If we develop restrictions, it's going to be, any restrictions are going to be better than what we currently have. So another example. So this is just one to show. So an EP zone up here. This is Eagle Lake area. But we can see what the actual mapping shows. So we show again, these lines are 5-meter increments. So we show a steep hill in this direction here. We show a low-lying area in here. You can see that this EP zone is not accurately represented to what this is. So again, those are things that staff would have to work with, to basically say, look, this mapping isn't entirely accurate. So if you have EP up here, it might not be accurate. So, but this mapping is available to any resident. It's available on our website that shows you where your EP zones are. So if your property does have EP zones, and let's say the municipality does move in a direction where we're going to restrict EP zones under the site alteration bylaw, and you don't agree with the mapping, those are things that you might want to get changed right away if you ever plan to do anything with your EP zone. If not, then it's probably not a big deal right off the bat. So that's essentially the pitch for EP. And again, we are going to request feedback on EP zones, how you want to handle the EP zones. So then we get into development. So basically developed lots versus non-developed lots. So again, the first one is developed lot. And we could see that a lot of these properties are clear cut right to the lake. They're existing older properties. This is what people did at one time, I guess. Whereas some of the properties are okay, but most of the properties are clear cut. And usually if your neighbor clear cuts, you might you tended to clear cut as well, so that you guys had the same option. But again, it doesn't really again, this is a case for encouraging restoration of these lots. So site alteration, where do we permit site alteration with a developed lot? So within all the existing disturbed area, or do we restrict it to the maximum 5 meter wide buffer and clearances around buildings and structures? In EP zones, do we restrict this to 1.5 meters wide? And what if the area is already disturbed? So again, if the area is disturbed, and what do we do with that in an EP zone? Those are things that we have to look at and say, oh, well, how are we going to treat these things in the bylaw? So we need to encourage restoration back to the natural state in order to comply with our official plan, because our official plan had direct wording in there. So we should put direct wording right in the bylaw. But how do we encourage that? And that's another aspect that we're going to be looking for feedback on. So non-developed lots. So basically with non-developed lots, basically restricted to a maximum 5 meter wide buffer within the water setbacks. That's essentially mirrors the county's tree preservation bylaw. So it allows you to do that on a vacant lot, but not much else. And then once the lot gets developed, then you can do those other clearings to as we restrict as are restricted under the tree preservation bylaw and our future site alteration bylaw if we go in that direction. So in AP, restrict any activity except as prohibited in the zoning bylaw. So again, that 1.5 meter wide path through that AP zone. No, don't fill in your AP zone, those types of things. All right, and the other aspect is, looking at if we need some specific restrictions within the bylaw, and some of these are so retaining walls. Do we need specific requirements around retaining walls? So I have heard, some, again, it's not actually like correct advice that you need a permit for retaining walls. So we don't need a building permit for retaining walls unless they're adjacent to public space, or adjacent to a public, sidewalk or something like that. But some municipalities do actually restrict them. So the last municipality I worked in, we restricted retaining walls. We required you to get a municipal permit for retaining walls that exceeded one meter in height. Whereas here, everybody builds retaining walls. We're not going to make people get permits for retaining walls, I don't think. But do we need to provide any specific restrictions in the bylaw? Maybe so the county bylaw, they limit to a maximum 1 meter in height. For before you need a permit or something like that. Is there a maximum height that we need to go? So these are things that we're looking for feedback on from the public and our community partners. Slope stabilization. So the tree preservation bylaw, touches on this. It identifies when slope stabilization should be provided. So basically anything over 25%. But should we have specific restrictions? Should we even mention in the bylaw? Should we just have a general requirement that slope stabilization shall be provided? Again, looking for feedback in the questionnaire. Silt control and or erosion measures. So this is a fairly, it could be fairly controversial because, I attend a construction site fairly often, and I've started looking for silt control when people are building next to lakes, and there's not a lot of it being provided at the present moment. So again, you can have something as simple as just silt fencing, but you can't install silt fencing if you're the rocks within a couple inches down of the soil. So there's other options like wattles or straw bales, those types of things where silt control can be provided. And we can have specific restrictions for silt control, or we can have general restrictions. So basically just something indicating that silt control measures shall be provided and maintained. So maintaining it is definitely an important part. Because you probably have more than one significant rainfall during a house construction or something like that. So again, maintaining it, so make sure that they don't overflow with silt. Just have a general statement in there that silt is not permitted to enter the waterways. Or we can have specific or general or specific requirements that require certain requirements for silt control and erosion control. So, maybe 2 layers or 3 layers, whatever is deemed acceptable. General statements are usually better, but there's, people way more educated in these fields than I am. And those are the people I'm looking for feedback on. What's the best method of doing this? And maybe there is, public information out there that we can easily take and put into our bylaw if that's what the case may be. Foundation drainage from discharge too close to a shoreline. So these are things like, so this is a couple of items. So house drainage, like around your weeping tile for your foundation. So a lot of times people just run that down towards the water. But again, if you're getting a lot of water coming through that, so if there's breaks of underground drainage, those types of things, you might get a lot of water going through that foundation drainage. And, it might cause erosion, those types of things close to the shore. We had another issue back when we did the open house for the septic reinspection program on Kinesis Lake. So their septic, their pump chamber stopped working, the pump in the chamber. So the pump chamber was overflowing, and they had just put in a nice set of basically rock stairs going around their house down to the back of their house or front of their house down towards the water, with a nice sweeping tile that basically drained the water away from it, and everything was basically going from that pump chamber was going down into that weeping tile, going down towards the lake. So do we have to have specific restrictions on something like that, or just general ones? Basically, giving a distance that it has to be away from the water, those types of things. So anything affecting a neighboring property. So again, if you are, filling in your property and slower than your neighbors, now you're higher than that property. Are you causing issues on your neighboring properties? Or, because you filled in your property, you didn't create a swale that allowed for drainage to go down along the property lines. You're directing it onto your neighboring property where it wasn't there before. So those are issues. Do we need specific restrictions or just general restrictions that you don't affect your neighboring property during site alteration? Those types of things. Or do we need any mention at all in the bylaw? So that's the feedback that we're looking at. And the type of machinery, equipment use. So again, I hear about the road work that's going on adjacent to the 118 by the gardens. And, I keep hearing the issue about, if they're one of those machines, it blew a hydraulic line and so is there a requirement that we have to restrict the equipment or machinery used in there? Again, feedback on that. Again, I'm looking for again, the people that are used to using this type of machinery. Maybe that doesn't happen. I don't know. I'm not an expert on machinery, so I'm looking for that type of feedback to basically see if it needs to be in the bylaw. So encouraging restoration of the shoreline back to the natural state. So again, we're looking at that one and saying, so what is that going to look like? And again, I'm not sure in my mind, but exploring it a little bit, staff have come up with some items that are already out there. And the Love Your Lakes program, CHA Shoreline Improvement Project. So again, that information's already been done. How do you improve your shoreline? Is there a way that we can encourage it through the municipality? Those types of things. So can we put it right in the bylaw somehow? So this is feedback that I'm looking at. So again, there's a great, so this 10-foot ribbon of life. Again, if you have a clear-cut property, you have no vegetation, any vegetation is better than none. And this 10-foot ribbon of life. So Barb Elliott, she's got a video on this, and I definitely recommend anybody to look at that video, to watch that video and see about the 10-foot ribbon of life. Makes a lot of sense, but again, how far do we encourage this? Those types of things. Native plant sales. So again, putting all these things together. So there's heard this on the radio, the Friends of the Ecological Environmental Learning. So FEEL, they do this plant sale. I don't know if they do it every year, but it was this year, and it's decent price for these native plants, and they actually have bundles of plants for shorelines, those types of things. So putting all this together and maybe encouraging it, and maybe maybe the encouragement is gets greater with lake health. So again, if you have a poor lake health, or if your lake health is declining, maybe it's the encouragement needs to be greater, those types of things. So it's just things to keep in mind as you're providing the answers to the questions that we're going through. So the next steps, so working group, so again, we met a few times with staff working group to come up with this strategy, and so it's being introduced to council today, and community partner working group. So basically I've got May 3rd booked at the West Guildford Community Center, 3 to 5 p.m. That I want to have the community partners go basically to get involved in. So the community partners involved, like our lake associations, home builders group, those types of groups that, people that have way more experience in working with site alteration than I do, where we want to hear from these people, and from both sides, from both avenues. So again, people that want more restrictions, people that don't want as many restrictions. So we want to, have everybody from both sides, basically come to this group to give more feedback. Again, I encourage anybody that's going to come to that meeting. And again, we're going to send out specific invitations as well. But we want to encourage them to watch this video beforehand so that they get an idea of what we're actually proposing. And then a summary of feedback and draft bylaw present to council. We're looking at around basically May 23rd for that, because we're going to be requiring all the feedback, the questionnaires to be submitted by May 10th. So that'll give like over 2 weeks for people to submit their feedback, and then summarize that feedback and see where that lands, create a draft bylaw, and present something around May 23rd. And bylaw to be presented to council June 13th if everything seems to be going in the right direction. So that's essentially what our timeline is looking like at this point. So that's it for that presentation. Let me skip this here. So basically the questionnaire, I've attached a questionnaire to the report. So we do have this questionnaire on our website, which we're going to open up basically after this meeting if council gives us this direction to start seeking public input. And so it's basically a questionnaire on a website. You fill it out, the results automatically get emailed to me. So there's nothing you need to do as the public or community partners or anything. Just fill out the form, and the results automatically come to me. And that basically concludes my presentation. Any questions at this point?
Well, certainly that's a lot of work, Carl. Questions? Nancy?
So basically per lot, what percentage of each lot are we looking for to be in a natural state or to be renaturalized? Do we have a number?
No, there's no percentage in this one. So I know that county's bylaw, so they went at 25%. But again, ours, because we're using the existing tree preservation bylaw, the tree preservation bylaw allows for all these things within the setback. So we're not going with a percentage, we're going with the actual restrictions currently within the tree preservation bylaw.
Supplementary, did you have, or another question? No? Okay. Pat, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Carl, is this provincial mandate or is this revolving under the shoreline bylaw that's been paraded at the county?
Yeah, so this was a bit of council's direction that because we didn't I guess we didn't sign on to the new county bylaw, their shoreline preservation bylaw. We were going to create our own set of requirements, and this is essentially what we're working on to basically create some restrictions for site alteration. It's not a provincial mandate by any means. And again, anything that we do from this point on is additional restrictions beyond what we currently have in place with the tree preservation bylaw. But it essentially mirrors the tree preservation bylaw where you can do site alteration. That's essentially what the aim is here.
So is it primarily for lake health or optics of around the lake?
A little bit of everything. So again, both of them are very important. Our official plan states that we have to basically protect for both of those items. So it's not one over the other. It's essentially the same. They're it's the same goal overall.
Okay, because with no offense to anybody, and I'm for the environment. Like my grandson's been the 8th generation in Harbourne County, so we're definitely, our roots are here in terms of trying to preserve it as long as we can. But I get confused as to the direction of this whole thing. And again, with no disrespect to people like you that work hard on what you're working on, but on the same note, if it's based on the agenda of the shoreline bylaw, where, like, again, we're picking on Paul McGinnis, but he wrote a book in 2019 that indicated the lake health of every lake in the county. So I got a hold of it and looked through Cache, because a lot of boat traffic, a lot of septics, sewage treatment plant, and a lot of, marinas, what have you. So I opened it up, and of course it, for phosphates, and I think it was clarity and alkalinity and a bunch of other things there. It indicated that Cache was green, meaning good, and it was trending, which is great on that note, which, I found impressive. I was surprised. I thought it may be trending yellow based on information we're getting from other groups indicating that the lakes are really in peril. On that note, I do see a huge increase, not a huge increase, but an increase in boat traffic on lakes. But on the same note, I flipped pages over and I thought, well, look at Lipsey Lake, because Lipsey Lake's got a 100-foot setback, spring fed trout lake, cold water on land, and it's yellow, trending yellow. So again, I go to the back and there's a whole stack of past information that was done by lake associations, the MNR and the MOE, that has tracked information, I believe, from 2006 to present, and some lakes are getting healthier on that note. And there was no massive decline in regards to a red or a yellow or what have you. There's brought up that there's some blue-green algae on a local lake. On the same note, there's blue-green algae in 2 accounts in Algonquin Park without a cottage around it. And again, please know I'm against preserving the environment. But what I start to see here is a massive chain of framework that a homeowner or what have you has to work in to take advantage of their property, which is, essentially to a certain degree of civil liberty. If we protect clear cutting and maybe pesticides, or boat traffic is done by I think it's federal or provincial as it is now, which is kind of out of our hands. But when you throw erosion into that, and we there's barriers there that we can't, as contractors, get to the lake to stop the erosion, then the trees that we're saying that we want the buffer for fall in the lake, and the erosion starts working its way back, which is prevalent on Cache right now. So again, I appreciate your presentation on what you've done on it, and I do think it's going to be great moving forward to get as many groups and as many people that are actively working on lakefront or own lakefront or have a passion about lakefront to really get some feedback here, because we want one chance to get it right. And I'm all about being practical and looking after the environment. But I would hate to have a massive amount of work, because again, somebody's going to have to manage that work on the municipal side. But also, even, I'll exaggerate it to say, if you want to put in a fire pit to enjoy a fire, which is what cottagers do, or massage their lakeside lot so they could have a patio and entertain or what have you, and again, enjoy their investment and the environment. I often think about that 10-foot ribbon of life that a professor from Fleming wrote. To me, that holds some weight in water. If she's got she's an accredited professional and professor, that's something that we got to listen to as well, rather than someone's emotion about saying, we got to keep these lakes clean, which we do. And at township level, septic inspection program, #1, keep the lakes clean. And, those types of things, really, lake associations could also talk to their members about electric or 4-stroke engines, the list goes on, wakeboard boats, which, which is another topic, I don't want to get into, but it is something to be talked about on that note. So anyway, sorry to ramble on, appreciate your hard work on it. But I really want to get it out there that we've got to get some good well-rounded comments, so we're not getting something that's going to get cross-threaded once we put it into motion, So
yeah. No, I definitely appreciate your feedback. It's interesting. I don't pay attention to any of these lake health reports or anything like that. I don't review those. But Cash, so we're doing our septic reinspection on Cash this year. We haven't even done it yet, but the lake health is trending higher. So again, I do agree that our septic reinspection program is one of the best contributors to lake health, best protections to lake health anyway. And when we do Cash, it should be better after this year because we're going to catch quite a few systems that may not be functioning properly. So it's good information that you bring up for sure. Things that I've never considered. It's entirely up to council at the end of the day what they want in a site alteration bylaw, if they want one at all. Thanks for the comments.
Well, Pat, I think those are all good points. And if you notice in Carl's presentation, when you look at it closely, he's used the word encourage a lot of times rather than no permitting system. And I think the conversations we've had and with Barry and Carl is to keep the thing general, but go to the public, get the feedback, and then we can massage it and do what we want. But at the end of the day, we want something that's not onerous, protects the lake, like you say. And I like what Barb Elliott said about the 10-foot. I think if we leave that alone, that's huge. And I do think the water runoff is a big deal here and probably an issue.
Well, with offense, I guess what's mentioned doesn't matter. But Harbourne does have steep fines, and so does the MOE for siltation in the lake. And being in the excavation business, we take it upon ourselves to make sure we have those curtains up because the fines aren't $500, like they're in the thousands of dollars.
I know some contractors have had those fines.
Right, and they mean business on that note. So if there's an established penalty program there, all someone has to do is phone up and say, "Yep, there's a plume of silt in in front of my dock." Then they come up and the action gets written or fine or what have you. But anyway, just trying to not recreate the wheel on a municipal level rather than it's a provincial one.
Any other comments? So the public meeting is in West Guilford on May the 3rd. Did you say 5 o'clock?
3 to 5.
3 o'clock. I didn't think you'd have them right in the supper hour. Well, hopefully most of us can attend that if we can. Any other questions? I think it's a lot to digest. So let's get it out there and see what the feedback is. And
yeah, definitely rewatch it a few times. I went through it fairly quick because I know time is of the essence on here, but rewatch the presentation a few times before you comment on the forums and see what you get. Again, at the end of the day, council is going to be the one that decides what they want. So, a lot of these residents groups, council is going to be the one that you might want to talk to. But I'm always open to any discussion from anybody, residents or any of these community groups alike, to get more information.
Yeah. And certainly council can go back and look at it again and see if there's concerns and voice them. Nancy?
In the fall, I attended a Watersheds Canada seminar and I actually sent the link to Mallory. It was a recording of the whole thing, but she was going to send it out to everyone. And a lot of the information in that kind of fits in with what we're trying to do with this. So I think it's probably if anybody has 40 minutes to sit, and it's a good thing to watch.
Okay.
It's about all the zones and
is that
how they impact. Again, it's good. It can fit in with our bylaw that we're trying to do for zones and shaping walkways and the amount of coverage there should be per lot.
Well, I think the biggest thing is to keep it as practical as we can make it. That's so that people understand it and do a lot more education, never mind enforcement. Let's educate. Anyway. Well, that was good, Carl, and that's a lot to digest, but we'll get through it. And thank you for your work. So we have a resolution on that.
Be it resolved that council receive the site alteration bylaw report as information, and further the council direct staff to seek public consultation on the suggested commenting topics as proposed.
Mover and seconder. Carm and Walt, all in favor? Carry. Okay, so now we have the deer feeding, the good old deer feeding bylaw. Rob, I guess that's you or Carl who's doing this. Rob?
Yeah, I guess that's me. So what we have presented right now is the final draft of the bylaw as requested. I think Carl and I we're looking at it this morning. There's probably a couple of things there that we can change if council wants to do those changes. If there's any questions or Carl, you have to want to add to it.
I think reviewing Philip's submitted information to council that was on the agenda, a lot of that mirrored a lot of the issues that I kind of had with the bylaw. It seemed a little restrictive, like you can't have existing fruit-bearing trees are fine, but you can't plant any more within the hamlet area. Those types of things. Bird feeders have to be out of reach of deer. Like, how do you achieve that? I'm not sure, but there are some restrictions. Health and safety was another one. So again, it's more of a nuisance thing than a health and safety item, because it's like he mentioned, it's we're going to be in 50 speed limit areas, those types of things. So I think if council wants to go ahead with this bylaw, we rework it to be a little make a little more sense. But it's up to council which way you want to choose. Again, it's pretty restrictive the way it is, and if that's the way that council wants to go, then this bylaw is probably fine. But
did you hear the delegation this morning, Carl?
Yes, I was here, and yeah, he made a lot of sense with his points. But that's not what we're focusing on. We're focusing on the direction that was given by council.
Exactly. So I think the direction was hearing from council is to just delay it for now and go back and look at the zones that we really can do something about it if they're smaller in the town, and consider what he said this morning. There's a lot of issues here. Whether the M&R will do anything, I doubt that. But we can try, because this is not going to go away.
Like there's a lot of decisions to be made for sure, but I think one of the biggest decisions, and this could affect the whole town in a positive way, and that is slowing down, changing the speed limit. I think we all drive too fast, and especially with the that new development there, seniors walking around. I just think that would really help our community in a long way, like in a lot of different areas, not just the deer. So I think that's definitely a positive.
From being hit with a car, you're
yes.
saying, yeah.
I mean, the deer, you're doing 50 kilometers and you hit a deer. At least if you're only doing 30 kilometers, you got a chance maybe to miss it.
So we're going to have another look at this then and work with Rob and Carl. Is that what the direction is? Okay, we need to, I guess we need to. Are you going to be okay? No.
So
would council like staff to come up with a simpler bylaw with less restrictions in it, and change the mapping a little bit?
Well, we know there's huge issues in Albion.
Right.
That's an area that should be dealt with, and I think this Highland Street, I don't know, maybe over to Park Street or something, get them off the. It's not. I don't know why we can't stop feeding them in the summer. That's something that I have trouble with. Why you got to feed them in the summer, I don't know.
Or even in the hamlet, the actual densely populated areas.
Yeah.
Get them out of there so that they're even further out into the more urban areas, that aren't as densely populated, start that way, or I don't know. We can look at some options like that. So it's not so restrictive. If that's what council would like to see.
And you could circle some areas and just bring that back to us and we can talk to you about it. Nancy?
Could someone just take the responsibility to reach out to the MNR and see if they have any sort of plan or guideline on how to reduce the in-town population? At least then you've taken the proper step and ask for.
We did
the
reach out
advice.
to them with comment on the bylaw in general, and they didn't provide that input, but we could ask more specifically.
I think we need to talk to them about the wolves too. There's lots of things we need to talk to them about, but I'm not suspecting they have any people. So how are they going to do anything? I guess probably should go right to Laurie Scott and have her go to the minister and say, look, we got a problem.
We can't be the only township that's facing this now or has in the past. So I think if we did that with Mallory and again, we're not going to solve, whether we feed the deer, we don't feed the deer in town. The problem is the wolves in town, right? So, we could say, keep your bead views at 10 feet, don't plant any apple trees, and on it goes. But the deer are not just because we change the feeding habits. And so if we're able to talk to the MNR or Lori, at least it gets to that level, and it's becoming a problem.
And maybe we should invite somebody with authority to the council meeting from MNR to tell us.
That's a good idea. So,
They're just on the phone where they can walk away.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess staff needs some direction here. So let's do the Helbium and the built up areas, circle them on some kind of a map, Rob, and we'll have a look at it and
So do we want to? is there any-
summertime feeding. I think we got to stop the summertime feeding. That's no excuse for that. There's all kinds of feed there if they go.
Is there a specific date for summertime feeding you want that council would prefer? Like, I don't know, June to October or June to September?
Well, you don't get any snow till December, do you? Not that anything that the deer should survive. Well, you can't hunt in town anyway.
The October starts is the legal, from what the MNR is telling me, is the white-tailed deer hunting season. So,
okay, that's.
I'm saying October. We could probably beginning of October when I stop summertime feeding, and then
Hunting
they would
season
have
first November, right?
provincial okay to.
I've lost track of that season.
Maybe we stop it before that to get the deer moving out of the town, because
Apparently they're not going anywhere. The sound of it. They're here for the long.
So like, do you not think slowing down would help though?
Well, sure.
I think we were talking about that earlier on, about that 30-kilometer zone.
Yeah.
In town anyways as well, Walt. I think it'll help, but
It's going to save the accidents, but it's not going to.
no question. Yeah.
It's going to save the accidents, but it's not going to save the aggravation that's given the residential people. Anyway, it's a start. No, and we're soon going to have a turkey problem. Yeah. Oh, boy.
Okay, I think I have a resolution.
Okay,
Be it resolved the bylaw 2023-44 being a bylaw to regulate and control the feeding of deer be deferred for further discussion around boundary limits, seasonal feeding restrictions, and to seek further MNR input.
who wants to move that? Barry and Pat. All in favor? Barry. Okay, guys, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Barb, you're next.
Okay, yes, so good morning. The first report here we have is the revenue and expenditure report at December 31st of 2022. And so we're looking to finish 2022 with an operating surplus of $194,430. Some of the items contributing to the budget surplus included some additional property taxation revenue through our supplemental billings and the assessments that we received throughout 2022. Additional interest income. We know during 2022, rates went from next to nothing up to just around 4 to 5%. So we were able to get some additional revenue on our general operating funds. There was a surplus of $196,000 for wages and benefits, and then a $273,000 surplus under the roads maintenance. Couple of items contributing to a budget deficit, obviously under landfill services, $304,000 due to the contract services and C&D. And then heating for some of our facilities certainly exceeded budget in 2022. There were some unbudgeted transfers that we've made to reserves and reserve funds. And this is in alignment with our policy 70 that we had launched in 2022. So there's an additional $25,000 that was transferred to the insurance reserve fund. There's $15,000 to the legal reserve, $50,000 to the tax stabilization reserve, and then $45,000 to the roads capital reserve fund. And that $45,000 was a surplus from our construction budget in 2022. So overall, a good news story, considering that we were experiencing some pressures throughout the 2022 operating year.
Any discussion on that? Resolution then?
Be it resolved, the council acknowledges receipt of the revenue and expenditure report at December 31st, 2022.
Moving seconder. Nancy and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Okay, revenue and expenditure to March 31st.
Yeah, so the first quarter of 2023, just a few items here under property taxation. You'll notice that our interim billing is reflected in that figure. And likewise, under the environmental services, you'll see the revenue for the sewer system. That there reflects 50% of the annual ERU billing. And then we have under recreation and culture, the expense there includes a deposit made for our new playground equipment.
Okay, any discussion? Resolution.
Be it resolved, the council acknowledges receipt of the revenue and expenditure report at March 31st, 2023.
Mover and seconder. Carm and Walt, all in favor? Carried. Reserve and reserve fund analysis.
Yes, so this here is an annual report that staff provide to council, summarizing the transfers to and the transfers from the reserve and reserve funds. The summary schedule there gives you an overview of the actual different category of reserves, and that there is aligned with our policy number 70. So you'll notice that reserves at the end of 2022 is $2,802,299. Our discretionary reserve funds is $5,462,363. And our obligatory reserve funds are $1,671,431. So if you do refer to the detailed schedules, that gives you a little bit more of an insight on the nature of the transfers to and the transfers from the reserves. They're basically aligned with the annual operating budget. And you'll also note when you go back to the the summary of the reserves that the developments reserve has been further defined through different activities or purposes, which basically is aligned with the asset management plan, and it'll give it a little bit more continuity and visibility for council to make sure that we're working towards putting sufficient funds aside for asset replacement. And so this particular report here is also aligned with our annual audit, which is currently ongoing for 2022. And this will support some of the requirements that the auditor is looking for in terms of transfers to and transfers from reserves and reserve funds.
Okay, so basically reflects almost among the numbers you gave us at the budget time. Okay, resolution.
Be it resolved that council approves the 2022 reserves and reserve fund analysis as presented in the attached summary report and supporting schedules A, B, and C.
Mover and seconder. Nancy and Barry, all in favor? Carried. Okay. This next one, this has been around forever. It's a nice try.
Yes, so we've received this letter from the town of Essex, who is looking to reinstate the legislation permitting a municipality to retain surplus proceeds from tax sales. And so historically, the municipality had the opportunity to retain any surplus funds from a tax sale. And that legislation was changed commencing 2019. And so basically the process is typically after 1 year, any sale proceeds on a tax sale, which have been paid into court, can be applied to get a payment out of court by the municipality. So Dysart has been successful in making applications for a payment out of court. And so it's staff recommendation that we actually lobby to seek if this legislation can be reinstated.
Good. So we want to support this then.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's a lot of work. Tax sales are a lot of work.
Yeah.
We should be rewarded for it. Resolution.
Be it resolved that Dysart Council supports the resolution from the town of Essex urging the reinstatement of previous legislation that permitted municipalities to apply for and retain surplus proceeds from tax sales in their jurisdiction, and further directs that this resolution be circulated to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, the Ministry of Finance, MPP Laurie Scott, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and all Ontario municipalities.
Mover and seconder. Barry and Nancy, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Who's doing the, I guess that's pretty standard, that's the landfill bylaw, isn't it?
Fee bylaw.
Yeah. The C and D stuff.
This is consolidation of everything. Yeah, this is just the fees that are recommended.
Yeah, that's the $80. Yep. Okay. That's what we decided, so. Resolution then.
Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-43 being a bylaw to impose fees and charges be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached hereto.
Mover and seconder. Walt and Barry, all in favor? Carry. Okay.
There's an appointment for the source water protection.
Actually, what are they doing for us? I can't figure this out. Why are we on this?
You're required to be.
Required to be, by who?
I'll have to give you a better answer than I can
You will.
give you right now.
I know this, Mark Makowski guy.
I have a resolution to endorse their
yeah.
recommendation if you want.
Yeah,
me
I
to.
guess so. That's Barry's committee, I think.
Be it resolved that municipality of Dysart et al. Endorses the city of Kawartha Lake Supervisor of Policy Planning, Paul Pantikkinen, as the Kawartha Halliburton Municipal Rep on the Trent Conservation Coalition Source Protection Committee.
Just adding a member there, one short. Mover and seconder. Barry and Carm, all in favor? Barry. Okay, do we need to give, what have we got? 10 minutes, I guess we might as well start. We get Jeff and Chris back on here. Get the hot pond underway anyway. Not wild, 3 years and he's a year away yet. No wonder people, we got the housing shortage. Okay, guys.
Right.
We're
This
doing
is
11A.
Yep, perfect. Yep, this is for 11A. The application that we heard this morning was for Hot Pond. Staff have no further comment, and have provided the recommendations and bylaws for council's consideration.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Well, I guess we're ready to go then.
Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-46, which is bylaw to adopt OPA 2, OP amendment for the lands of Hot Pond Enterprises on part lot 17, concession 8, lot 6, and part lot 12, plan 1 in the geographic township of Dysart, be read a first, second, and third time, signed in the corporate seal attached. Staff are directed to forward OPA 2 to the county of Harbourne for approval. Be it resolved that council approves in principle the draft bylaw 2023-47 to amend zoning bylaw 2005-120 for the lands of Hot Pond Enterprises Core, which would change the zone on the subject lands from general commercial 4C4, exception zone, general commercial 4HC4, exception zone withholding provision, and urban residential type R1 zone to urban residential type 315, R315, exception zone withholding provision in order to permit medium density residential and mixed use commercial on the subject property, and direct staff to return with the bylaw upon approval of the concurrent OPA 2.
Okay. Yeah, well done. Need a mover and seconder? Nancy and Walt, all in favor? Okay. Burks Road. Mr. Parker.
Yes, this is for a severance agreement. So the severance agreement application was submitted to address the imposed condition for a recent severance application of the subject property. The registered owner is required to enter into a severance agreement with the municipality pursuant to section 51(26) of the Planning Act in order to address all planning matters and include recommendations of development for the site from the site evaluation report and environmental impact study. The severance agreement was included with the report for council's consideration. And staff recommend that council approve the bylaw, which is the bylaw to execute the, which is a bylaw to authorize the execution of a severance agreement between the owner and the municipality.
Just a right away, right?
This one was to create a
severance.
It was a lot of so it was a lot line adjustment, and then as part of that, they were required to do the severance agreement as a condition.
Okay, resolution.
Be it resolved that the report for the lands of Parker, which consists of concession 6, part lot 22, part 1 and 6, RP 19R 781, in the geographic township of Dysart, be received for information, and that bylaw 2023-48, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a severance agreement with Robert Parker for the lands located in part lot 22, concession 6, part 1 and 6, RP 19R 781, in the geographic township of Dysart, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, in the corporate seal attached here too.
Mover and seconder. Carmen Berry, all in favor? Okay. And the next is the execution of the severance agreement for the same. Any comment on that from staff?
Just looking at the agenda,
No,
the
it's Snyder.
next item is
Snyder
a
and,
road closing bylaw.
That's correct.
And I can speak to that. So 11C is a draft road closing bylaw for the lands of 583056 Ontario Incorporated and Snyder to purchase a shore road allowance in front of their property on Harbourne Lake. Staff recommend that the application be deferred until a registered survey has been provided. If council has any questions about the staff report, I'm happy to answer them.
So are there buildings on, do you think there are buildings on the shoreline allowance then?
No, it does not appear that there's any building on the shore road.
Or you just need a survey to verify?
Correct. So the survey is what provides the legal description to help us convey the shore road allowance to the applicant.
Okay, so you have to have a survey to do it, so
Correct.
This will be deferred.
Good.
Okay.
Be it resolved, the council defer the bylaw to stop up, close, and convey a portion of the original road allowance in front of part lot 15, concession 10 in the geographic township of Harbourne until a registered survey is provided.
Mover and seconder, Nancy and Barry, all in favor? Okay, now we're good to Harcourt Park.
And my understanding that the applicant is in attendance today, so will he be brought forward before I begin my presentation?
Sure. David, Mr. Owen.
Hello, good morning, Mayor and councillors. My name is David Othen and I own the land lease at 1081 Corliss Lane in Harcourt Park. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you today. I know you likely have a busy agenda, so I will keep this brief and will answer questions at the end. I have provided a package for you with my presentation summary and some pictures which I will refer to during my presentation. We are facing a problem that has not been addressed for 60 years. I hope I can help solve this for me and the municipality at considerable cost to me, approximately $20,000, a financial gain for the municipality. It also will relieve the municipality of any liability that may occur on the property. My goals in being here today: number one, to ensure you have the necessary information you need to make your decision. Number two, to outline the implications for me, the land lease, and others in Harcourt Park. Number three, to clarify next steps, the process, and estimated timelines. And number four, to ensure this is resolved so that when I sell the cottage in years to come, there will not be an issue. History and background. In 1963, a building permit was granted by the municipality of Dysart to construct a cottage. The cottage was constructed, inspected, and approved, all while being built on the original shore road allowance. I have the building permit for the original cottage provided by the planning department. There were no drawings or surveys on file. In 1988, the cottage was sold to Lynn and Robert Hancock, who built the existing outhouse and dockhouse without a permit in 1988, 35 years ago. In March of 2017, the cottage was advertised for sale as having 353 feet of waterfront, which was attractive to me for many reasons, including privacy, outbuildings for storage, a spacious deck. Since many other cottages on the lake have bunkies, gazebos, and or dock houses within what I now know is the original shore road allowance, it did not occur to me that there would be any problem with any of the structures on the property I was purchasing. These other properties are all easily visible from the lake and from Corliss Lane. The purchase of this cottage was a lifelong dream for me, and I have thoroughly enjoyed all aspects of ownership. In 2017, when I bought the cottage with the deck and the outbuildings and have been paying property taxes ever since, even though the cottage, the deck, and the outbuildings are apparently on property that is not included in my land lease. In summary, for 60 years, a cottage and deck have been on a piece of land that the municipality owns. 2 additional buildings have been on that same land for 35 years. It has been sold 2 times since the original construction, and this has not come to light until now. How did we get here? I always knew that one day I would have to replace the deck as it was in very bad shape. During the first 5 years, I did small repairs to broken and rotting boards for safety and liability concerns. September 2022, I rebuilt the deck as close as possible to the existing dimensions and shape, as it was now a serious hazard. I built the deck without a permit because I thought I did not need one to replace what was already there. This was a mistake. October 2022, I received a notice to stop construction, which was done immediately. November 2022, I started working with the building department and the planning department. January 2023, I spoke with Danielle Vibert, who advised me of the steps involved for a minor variance. I emailed before and after pictures to DV Bear to support historical existence of the deck, its size and position, and to show pictures of the new deck built to the same size and position as the historical deck. The pictures in your package are labeled and numbered so you can see the before and after of the same areas. In my second conversation with Danielle, I was shocked to learn about the original Shore Road allowance and its ramifications. It appeared that the entire cottage was on this land. After speaking with Danielle, I started work on the Shore Road application. As of today, all documents have been submitted. I have requested the survey required, and I'm waiting to hear when that will happen. There are many overlapping issues: the Shore Road allowance, the minor variance for the deck, the survey, and the outbuildings. This has been a real education for me. Everyone at the municipality has been very helpful, and I could not have gone through the steps without their help. I would also like to thank Tammy Donaldson, who met me at the cottage on Saturday on very short notice. So now you have a representative who has actually seen the property and appreciates the challenges of access, etc. Implications. Number 1, if I cannot purchase the original Shore Road allowance and complete the deck, I cannot access the cottage. There are 3 access points, all from the deck. You can see the stairs leading up to the deck from where I park. Please refer to pictures labeled access 1, 2, and 3. Without the deck, the vertical drop is about 4 feet at the front door. That's picture 2. And it is a 2-foot drop on the north side, which is picture 3. Number 2, without the deck, there would be no easy way to clean eaves troughs, windows, sidings, or to do any exterior repairs. Number 3, this has significant financial implications for me. If I cannot purchase the original Shore Road allowance and complete the deck, the cottage will basically be worthless and impossible to sell. It also has insurance implications. If a claim came up and my insurance company found the land was owned by the municipality, questions may arise about who is liable. Number 4, it also has serious implications for my life. As a substantial part of my retirement plan, I had planned to fix up the cottage and enjoy it until and during my retirement, only a few years away. Due to this unresolved issue, my retirement plans are on hold. I have a couple of questions. Number 1, as I pointed out at the beginning, there are many other outbuildings like mine on the lake. If I have to tear down the outbuildings on my property, this has the potential to impact everyone on the lake, requiring investigation and possible tear down of some buildings built since 1977. Since this seems to be a can of worms, could the decision about my outbuildings be placed on hold until the issue with the SRA purchase and the deck are resolved? I have no good options to build another structure for storage since there is a granite wall behind the cottage where the original Shore Road allowance ends. Number 2, I understand the steps will be approval to purchase the land, a possible directive to tear down the outbuildings, then a survey, then purchase of the land, and finally a minor variance to finish deck construction. could I get some approximate timelines for the steps in this process? In closing, I ask that my land lease with Harcourt Park Incorporated will be able to go forward to include the original Shore Road allowance so that I and any future owner will feel secure that the existing cottage is included in the land lease. That will close this 60-year-old issue and relieve the municipality of any liabilities on the property. It would also ensure I will be able to sell the property in years to come without any problems. I understand that the purchase of the Shore Road allowance has been granted to other petitioners, so I am optimistic. Thanks again for your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
Are you prepared to buy the Shore Road allowance?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. And which would maybe legalize the deck?
That is my hope to legalize the deck, have the cottage on actual land that is within the land lease.
So you're questioning, you don't mind removing the outhouse. So there's another building you don't want to tear down though, right?
No, these two outbuildings, one's a little dock house. It's 8 foot by 8 foot, and the other one is an old outhouse. And, you know, if it has to be that they're not grandfathered in, then, you know, I would have to go by your ruling.
I don't know why you wouldn't want to get rid of the outhouse, but anyway.
Well, it's being used as a woodshed.
Yeah. Well, it shouldn't be called an outhouse.
Well, I'm going by what its original building purpose was, sir.
Okay. All right, I think Tammy, you were there, so you saw it, so.
Yeah, yeah, and everything he said is like dead on, like.
Yeah.
He has no options, he can't move
No,
back.
okay.
He can't go anywhere.
Well,
And it's natural shoreline, like it's covered. You would barely be able to see it because it's all covered.
Okay. All right, sounds like, well, let's hear the resolution and the planning people, that's your recommendations, right? By the shoreline, remove the buildings.
Correct, just to remove the illegal outhouse and the illegal shed that are located within the water setback. Staff were silent with regards to the deck because we understand Mr. Othen's intent is to submit a minor variance application to legalize that location.
So are you asking for a minor variance for that now or not?
I don't actually know. I found out from the planning department that in order to go for the minor variance, which I would like if that is necessary, that I have to own the SRA first. So one step at a time, as far as I can tell.
Well, I just want to make sure if you buy the road allowance, they're going to let the deck stay, or else you're really going to be upset.
No, well, absolutely. I want to do the minor variance, legalize the deck, make sure that everything is above board going forward for myself, the municipality, and any future owner. This is a great shock for me when I found out about the implications.
We get some great shocks here too. Is there any way, Jeff, that you can apply for the minor variance subject to closing the road allowance to get that? Because he can't. We got to run them. Otherwise, he could spend all the money and then can't get the minor variance.
Yeah, so council can give permission via resolution to allow Mr. Othen to make an application for a minor variance on municipal property. Yes.
Well, I think we should do that. Help him out.
I would appreciate that.
Okay. So we have a resolution. Something else to add? Have a resolution then?
Be it resolved, the council approves processing an application by Harcourt Park Inc. tenant Othen to purchase a portion of the Shore Road allowance along the shore of Allen Lake in front of their property in Part Lot 2, Concession 7, Parcel 99, Plan Allen Lake in the geographic township of Harcourt pursuant to Section 3.2.7 of the official plan. The shed and the outhouse located on the Shore Road allowance is to be removed or brought into compliance. These lands are declared surplus.
Sound right? Okay, mover, Tammy, And Carm, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate all the help.
Well, we're high priced, so you're lucky you got us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think we should break for lunch for a half hour. Do you mind coming back? Oh, you have a question?
Yes, just following up on that last application, did council want to add a resolution that permits Mr. Othen to submit a minor variance application on the municipal?
Yeah, we actually could have added it to that resolution, really. Couldn't we?
Yep.
If you want to give me the wording down onto the end, we can ask.
We'll
if
just add
there's
it to the end.
agreement.
Yeah, and it can just say something and further that council permit Mr. Othen to submit a minor variance application.
Concurrently with the shoreline closure. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, to submit a shoreline application?
A minor variance application
Sorry.
on the municipally owned shore road allowance is what I would say.
I'm gonna have to learn shorthand.
Do you know what short?
No, I still know cursive though. Okay. Would you like me to read this again?
Yeah.
Okay. Be it resolved that council approves for processing an application by Harcourt Park Inc. I'm just gonna say everything that I read before, and further that council permit Mr. Othen to submit a minor variance application on the municipally owned shoreline road allowance.
And that was moved by Tammy and seconded by Carm, I think. Or Barry, I'm not
Is
sure.
that still carried?
Yeah, carried. Okay, so we'll break for lunch and you guys, you want to join us in here then? Because you're on right after lunch, so. If you want to come in, come in.
Thank you.
Lori's going to shut us down here. Yeah. I think it's because tomorrow I'm going down for this heart stuff. My mind's. Just be a minute, we're short a counselor here. Okay, Sue, are you gonna lead this or do you want staff to start?
No, I can start it off. We're all ready to go. So this is for the application 11E on the agenda for lands of Chadwick. The application is to create a legal right-of-way easement over the retained lot for access to the benefiting lot as shown on the consent sketch. There's an existing driveway through the retained lot known as 1496 Dignan Road. The owners of 1492 Dignan Road are currently utilizing the existing driveway through the retained lot to access to their property. The application, if approved, will formally legalize the right-of-way easement over the retained lot to the benefiting lot. During the review of the proposal, staff had highlighted a few compliance issues on the severed and retained lots that were outlined in the report. Conditions were included into the recommendations that the owner is to remove or bring in the structures into compliance with the zoning. And circulation is not required under the Planning Act for severance applications. However, staff have circulated to internal staff, and the building department commented that the location of the sewer system, distribution field, and septic tank should be verified on the subject property to ensure it is not located within the right of way, as this is an older sewage system and no records exist for its location. And Public Works just requires that an entrance permit be obtained for 1496 Dignan Road. And recommendations, as staff noted, there are a few non-compliant issues on the benefiting and retained lots, which will need to be addressed through the proposed conditions as outlined in the recommendations section of this report. Staff recommend that council support the general principle of the proposed consent as submitted, subject to the registered owner satisfying the recommended conditions. And that concludes the presentation.
Okay, and Sue, you've seen those conditions?
I have, yes, thank you. I was wanting to ask for a couple of clarifications, and I also wanted to let council know that this property, the benefiting property, is owned by 4 siblings, 2 of which I believe may be at the meeting. I can't see them, but they were intending to be there. Anyway, I would confirm with Chris that this right-of-way was established in the early 50s. It was registered, but when this property was transferred over to the land titles, it did not transfer the right-of-way. So we're correcting that now. I had 3 questions or clarifications on the conditions, just to confirm we're interpreting them correctly. Condition 3 requires the Chadwicks, who own the property the right-of-way is going over, they require them to purchase the shore road allowance. And I was just wanting to clarify that the condition will be met by the application being submitted as opposed to the application and the actual purchase being completed, because that would take another 1.5-ish to get that done. So I just wanted to confirm, as long as the application is in, that condition has been met.
Yes, we understand that that process can take some time. So as long as they've submitted an application to the municipality, then that would satisfy that condition.
I think, Sue, to be quite frank with you, we're going to have to, we're getting quite a few of these, and we're probably going to have some kind of a deposit, because it's pretty easy to walk away after and not close the road allowance. So I think we're going to have to talk about that. But if we're serious about closing it, then it all goes to the project anyway. So there may be some kind of a deposit at some point that's required.
Well, certainly these applicants are a little shocked that it didn't get transferred when it went to the land titles.
Yeah. Well,
apparently their dad purchased the property in 1953, was meticulous. The records that they have are quite meticulous for the property, and they feel their father would be very upset if he knew this had all transpired. So they certainly want to get the title cleaned up so that, if at some point in the future they choose to sell, it's a clean process. So they very sincerely want this right of way to be purchased.
Yeah. Okay, I understand. Okay. What was the second point you want?
Yes, thank you. Condition 5, the Chadwicks, again, the property that the right of way is going over, there's apparently a compliance issue with the location of the garage slash carport. And I'm just wondering, Chris, if you were able to confirm whether this is a legal non-conforming structure, and if the concern is perhaps the location of the carport and the sort of 1 meter setback isn't being met. Is that the concern?
It is for the setback to the right of way. So the zoning bylaw does identify setbacks to right of ways if they are not public, if they are private. So as such as this private right of way, it would be up to the owner to identify or to provide information to verify that that is either a legal non-complying structure or not.
Okay.
I don't have any information, but Jeff might have some further comments on that.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor. The only thing I wanted to add to that is the conditions are worded in a specific way that gives some flexibility to the applicant. So it doesn't just say that they need to be removed, it's they need to be removed or brought into compliance. So brought into compliance could mean a host of things. It could mean moving the structure, or it could just be proving that it has legal non-complying status or that it has legal status. So we'll accept anything that just proves that it's legal, and that will satisfy that.
Yeah, that's correct.
Appreciate that. And my final question is condition 7. It's more a point of clarification. It's the entrance permit. It's actually a shared entrance. So it serves 1496 and 1492, the benefiting property, and the property owners just wanted that clarified.
Okay, that may be a question that we'll have to follow up with Public Works.
Okay.
Because that comment came from Public Works, and that's the way that it was worded from the
Okay.
comment. So we can follow up, or even if you'd like to follow up with Rob Camelon on that question as well.
I can do that, yes. Thank you. Well, thank you for your time and the clarifications. And if anyone has any questions, I'm certainly happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions from council? No, it's pretty straightforward, I think. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution then.
Be it resolved that council support the general principle of a proposal for consent file D00SV 2023-002 Lands of Chadwick, subject to the following conditions and the comments received through the public review process. Registered owner to pay any outstanding taxes, registered owner to pay all admin fees to the municipality of Dysart, registered owner to apply to the municipality to purchase the shore road allowance adjacent to the retained property in order to recognize the boathouse location, registered owner to verify septic system location with the municipal building department for both the benefiting and retained lots as per building department comments. The registered owner shall remove or bring the existing garage carport into compliance to address the structure within the minimum setbacks on the retained lot. The registered owner shall remove or bring into compliance the existing shed located within the water setback on the benefiting lot. The registered owner shall apply to the municipality of Dysart for an entrance permit for the access from Dignan Road to civic address 1496. Severance is for the purpose of a right-of-way for the benefit of lands identified as roll number 46240500011600. And prior to the endorsement of the deeds, the property owner must request that the municipality provide a clearance letter to Harbourne County Land Division Committee confirming that conditions 1 to 7 have been fulfilled.
And of course, some of those are depending on the road superintendent and a couple of those things. So, okay. Mover and seconder. Barry and Nancy, all in favor? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go further here, see, we're getting, I think we need to take a down payment on these, like, it's about a $20,000 touch closure road allowance time you get the survey and buy it. And if I got what I wanted, I could just say, oh, I'm not going to do it. I think we should be taking like $3,000 and non-refundable, and if they don't do it, we keep the money. To buy it, some of them are running 15,000 for surveys. His feet have gone up. So if you didn't have the money, why would you bother doing it? Once you got what you wanted. I don't think people would do that, but they might. Anyway, I'll let staff think about that. Because it's going to happen more and more, where we're going to be pushed to pass them subject to closing the shore road launch.
So what you're saying is that we go ahead and okay it.
Yeah.
And then they choose not to,
Yeah.
how can we reverse that then? I
Well,
guess
you
we could or we
you-
could.
Well, I don't know how you can once they've got the building they need and they got the variances.
Right. Gotcha.
Well, once, yeah, when they went to sell it, but some of these are young people, they sell them for a long time. And even if they did, I don't know if a lawyer would even pick that up. Yeah, exactly. Okay, next.
Yes, thank you. So the next item, 5 backlot owners on Mink Road have submitted a request to renew their existing license of occupation, which permits 2 shared docks located on a municipal road allowance leading to Long Lake. The existing license has a 1-year term, which expires on May 31st of this year. The applicants note that due to the slope of the shore, it is impossible to access the water without a dock. The applicants have included a detailed proposal, which is attached to the report. They note the docks have existed since 1973. There are no other structures, and the configuration of the 2 docks limits the shore contact and maintains the natural appearance. As per the report, staff questioned whether the proposal complies with the intent of policy 32 and the municipality's official plan. If council wishes to approve the renewal, staff seek direction to process the application, but also begin the public consultation process. If council has any questions related to the staff report, I'm happy to answer them, but I also note that Mr. Neeg is in attendance today, and he's the agent for the application. And he might want to provide comments for council's consideration.
How many owners are involved here? 2 or 3? 4?
5 properties in total.
5 properties. And we have to go through a public process here?
That's correct. Last year, council directed staff to update the policy to include a public consultation process for license of occupation for docks that lead to water, on road allowances leading to water. So the policy requires a public consultation process.
Okay, and what's that, 30 days or 37 days or what?
Oh, I should have this in front of me. It requires us to circulate all property owners, I believe, within 150 meters of the site. Circulate internal departments. I don't believe it requires, sorry, I have it right in front of me here.
Yeah, it's license of occupation.
Yeah, so circulation.
We're talking about a license of occupation here, right?
Correct, to permit docks on a municipal owned shore, original road allowance. So the public consultation process requires us to circulate various internal departments, circulate by regular mail to every landowner within 250 meters of the area, posted on the municipality's website, and posted notice in a location clearly visible and legible from the public highway at the area to which the encroachment applies. So put a sign on the Mink Road right at the end of the road allowance as well.
Tammy, you have.
Jeff, you said that this just passed like last year or the year before for the other council. So do they only have to do this once? Like this is the first time that these docks have come up under the new rules? And do they only have to do this once? Yeah.
Well, my understanding is that it has to occur every time. So the reason council directed staff to include this in the policy was related to an existing license of occupation. And when that existing license came up for renewal, there was some public concerns about that license, and that's why council directed staff to put that in the policy.
So we're probably going to get that again.
for each renewal for one that leads to water.
Well, I know one thing that we have to do is change the fee for the license of occupation. It's ridiculous. So I think we probably now should go through the advertising here and then decide what we're doing with that fee. It's got to change. It's not covering anything, so.
So how long can we, like, this isn't we can do whatever term we want, like, is that right? Like, we can do it a 20-year term, 10-year, or does it have to be yearly or what?
We shouldn't go beyond the term of council.
No, term of council? Okay.
That's the last we should go.
Okay.
So for.
Yeah, historically, the standard's been 5 years, but certainly what Mayor Ferry has said does add some value. So, but it is at council sole discretion in terms of the term and the annual license fee.
So to proceed here, then we go ahead and do the advertising. And I doubt we'll see you next month then. That'll be June likely before we.
But it expires in May.
Jeff, when you do the advertising, do you need to include, like I noticed part of the resolution includes a fee, a proposed fee, a number of years. Does that need to be included before you can go out?
No, the reason I've asked for that information, it doesn't have to be included in the circulation process. The reason I've asked for that information is so when I do come back to council, the agreement and the bylaw include the term and the fee, so that I don't come with blanks in the bylaw and blanks in the agreement, seeking council direction again.
Yeah, we've got several of these coming up, so we need to get a policy that's right or closer to being right. Yeah, I want to change the fees.
I just mean for specific review around the policy itself as opposed to this.
Oh, it's mainly the fees that I'd like to see reviewed. Okay, so. Well, they're using it now, so. I guess till we get the answer, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you probably got your docs in already, have you? I don't think they ever take them out. He's not answering. Okay. There he is. Are your docs there already?
Yes, they are according to the last year application being approved. We are in position.
Yeah, well, it looks like it's going to be a little while before they're approved because we got to vote publicly to see what the neighborhood thinks. So that's the policy. So anyway, I'm sure we'll work something out here.
As far as you know, it was already advertised last year and was approved, and they were not concerned. I have a short presentation here, a couple of minutes, if you consider that is worth to present it to you.
So I couldn't make him out there. Could you?
He wants to do a presentation.
I'm sorry?
It was a 2-minute presentation.
Oh, well, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Member, Council and staff. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this meeting. I represent myself and the rest of the applicants for the extension of the license of occupation for the 2 docks, floating docks, to the end of the road allowance located between lot 5 and 6. I want to clarify a couple of points. I will elaborate, try to be as short as possible, and 4 points. Number 1, the policy 32, section 2E, based on which our application is not supported by the staff, states the municipality will not get permit the following uses of an unopened road allowance which lead to the water: any building or structure, including a dock or a parking area. The meaning of the word dock here is referring to a permanent structure built on the shore, as per definition of the word dock, which is also clearly illustrated in the municipality official plan. I have the picture of the plan and I can present it to you by camera. Our application, as everybody knows, is for a license of occupation for docking facility, also known as floating docks or marine facility, which does not involve any structure on the shore. This complies to the policy 32, section 2D, point 4, where it states Where a municipality grants permission to use the road allowance and council deems it to be appropriate due to the nature or scale of the use, for example, a docking facility or water access facility, the user must enter into a license occupation agreement with the municipality. This clarifies the section 2E, which is mentioned in the report, does not apply to our situation. Another point is, as mentioned in the initial letter submitted with the application in February 23, the long existence of these docks was confirmed in writing to the municipality by Mr. Darren Scott, owner of the property located on 1145 Ming Road since 1950s. This is the adjoining property to the road allowance. Number 3, the staff mentioned in the report that the location extends in front of the neighboring properties. It appears that it's a misinterpretation of the drawings submitted with the application. The width of the road allowance at the shore is 138 feet. The floating docks measure 12 feet wide each, placed in the middle of the stretch, leaving 50 feet distance to each of the neighboring properties. This makes it impossible for any interference with the neighboring property to occur. The last point, most of the applicants are using the properties as seasonal, so the floating docks are used only a few times during the summer. There were no any arguments with neighbors or excessive noise. The shore was kept clean and no altered in any way. All backlot property owners are free to use the floating docks. We have a letter to support signed by all backlot owners, which was presented with the last year application. So to summarize this presentation, we comply with all the requests from the municipality, including the liability insurance for the last year license. Our application complies with policy 32, paragraph 2D. Paragraph 2E, which is mentioned in the report, does not apply in this case because there is no any structure erected on the shore. The history of the docks being there was clearly stated by the neighbor, Mr. Scott. The existing floating docks does not create any environmental issue or were reported. So consider all the above. Respectfully, we ask the council to approve our application, which will benefit the community and the municipality by collecting the annual fee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I guess we'll have a resolution then.
Be it resolved that council directs staff to process an application to renew a license of occupation agreement with Andrews, Swanson, Benoit, Benigues, Barclay, and Andrews Way for use of the original road allowance on Long Lake, located between lots 5 and 6 in concession 4 in the geographic township of Dudley. And I'm just going to cross out the section that refers to the fees for now.
Just cross those out. Pardon? $100. Should be 10 times. Okay, we'll have a mover and seconder for that resolution. Barry and Walt, all in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you, sir. It's a long 2 minutes. Okay. Now, this is the Snowmobile Club now. Who's doing this? Jeff?
Yes, so the Potash Trailblazers Snowmobile Club have submitted a license of occupation application to formalize and legalize the location of their trails and a bridge, which are located on various road allowances in the municipality. So this originally started out with just a bridge that they wanted to replace, but in discussion with them, we thought it might be beneficial just to legalize all of their entities under one agreement at one time. They were writing to council to request that council waive the application fees and legal fees. So staff seek direction from council regarding their request. And I'm happy to answer any questions related to the report.
Well, that's a basically a non-profit group, so I think in this case, we can do that. Okay, resolution.
Be it resolved, the council agree to waive the application and legal fees for a license of occupation application for the Central Eastern Ontario Snowmobile region for use of various road allowances in the geographic township of Dudley, Harcourt, Harbourne, and Bruton for snowmobile trail purposes.
Mover and seconder, Tammy and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Okay, next is the good old cell towers.
Yes, thank you. So at the council meeting on April 15th, sorry, a notice of motion was passed directing staff to bring policy 38 back for council review and further discussion. What I did is I attached to the report, the council report, the report that came last month. So I seek specific direction from council how they wish to proceed with the tower policy.
Tammy, were you going to speak to that?
Yes, so we just want to put it back on the.
Yeah.
We would like to put it back on the agenda for discussion of what you had on April 15th, because I think you had 4 different policies at that. And that we should look into that. And because I think Highlands East was one that was just redone and that was in that package. So it would be nice to put it back on the agenda and look at it in further detail, because obviously from the public response that we do need one. And we might as well start the process.
Yeah, so we bring this forward then?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we'll just bring forward all the ones around us and see what, and go and have the discussion. Yeah.
Well, I have provided a link to the report from last month, so it does include this policy examples from other jurisdictions. It includes comments from proponents and the approval authority, as well as policy direction from our official plan and strategic plan. And lastly, I also summarized in that report the federal guiding policy document. So this is the policy that proponents are required to follow and outline, which outlines the steps that they would need to take when they go through the tower proposal. So, and even if the municipality did or didn't have a policy. So that is included in the report today.
Okay, I guess we didn't get quite prepared for today. I didn't anyway. But there's information coming out on this every day nearly. It's hard to follow, isn't it? So I don't think even if we collectively decide next month what we're doing, it's going to change anything, because we've got everything that we've got. All those sites are underway now, and they're close to decision time.
Well, I think that if we're going to do the policy, and let's just pick Highlands East because it's the closest and it's just been redone, and Rogers in one of the responses to the people only a few days ago said that ours needed to be updated. So if we pick Highlands East because it has just been updated, and we go with, I don't know if there's anything in there that we would change. Did you see anything majorly different when you looked at Highlands East policy, Jeff?
I would have to review it in more detail just to pick out the pros and cons and if there was any differences.
Yeah, that's why we were going to come back, right?
I think, excuse me, in the Highlands East one, they actually had a provision in there that should a tower go ahead, that they have the right to put a transponder or whatever on it for their own kind of roads department or emergency services. At no cost, but that be available for,
that's
municipal communication or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a good one to
look at it.
To copy, yeah, for sure. But the main thing is that we need to abide by it, and Highlands East has abided by theirs. Because they just got a new tower in there, it just doesn't happen to be Rogers, and it complies. So I think that the only towers that don't comply would be Rogers Towers. So obviously there's other locations that can happen because they pick locations that comply to the policy. So if we're going to do this policy and we're going to have it similar to Highlands East, then we should abide by it. And Rogers needs to know that.
The only difficulty I see with that is like the one at Curry Drive, for instance, now,
Mhm.
they're putting, I forget what they call them, underneath it so you can't see the light, which is something I never heard before. So that's what's bothering those people up there is the light. So the problem is, what happens if you can't meet the 500 meters? Are you going to tell people they can't have it in the area?
How
And
does,
that's why it's preferable to have 500 meters. I don't think we can lock ourselves into the exact meters.
it doesn't say 500 meters?
It does, but it says, if you can.
Yeah.
It's not must.
I think it has to be because you don't know. What if it's 450 meters and you say, well, you can't do it? And so we need to, we can establish the 500 meters, especially if it's in a wetland or it's somewhere it shouldn't be, close to something it shouldn't be. But they're not going to be able to meet 500 meters from every cottage on some of these lakes and have connectivity. So we're going to have to make a choice. Like Algonquin Highlands just turned one down, but now they're passing it. So
Why did they turn it down?
I don't know
I think
the
it was distance.
distance
It's
again.
just- Well, you know that if anybody has done any research on 5G, those towers have to be so close together. And you could do your own research easily by going down the road to the city and find out how many 5G towers. The next time you're going down the 400 even, if you see a 5G tower, the first one you see, then look ahead to see where the next 5G tower is. It's going to be right there. And that's what they want to do up here. Now, this is Harbourne Lake, there's 3 of them, but this is just the first, this is just the beginning.
Mhm.
We're gonna have towers all over the place and there's other options. Like we just got a letter this morning where fiber optics is on its way, which is underneath, so nobody sees it. There's so many other options, even with the Wi-Fi. And now you can call and text on the Wi-Fi when you don't have cell service. This is going to be obsolete and we're going to have all these towers stuck out in our landscape that are going to be irrelevant. And they're there for 20 years.
Yeah.
There's other options. And if Bell can comply, why can't Rogers?
I think the fiber optics is coming to some areas, but it's not coming to a lot of.
And why does Bell have a long distance of 12 kilometers and Rogers towers are good for 800 meters?
Yeah.
Like, it's not the product that's required up here. It is maybe down the 400 or in the city. I mean, if you go to downtown Toronto, there's a 5G on every.
I'm not sure that that's a Rogers thing. I think that's more of a provincially mandated issue that everybody has to have the use of this high-speed internet, high definition internet. So I don't necessarily think it's Rogers that's saying this. I think it's the provincial government that's saying 90-some%
That
of
was
the
the condition of the
population.
grants. They had to
has to
serve
have this.
90-some% of the people.
So it's not really up to us or up to Rogers to say, we're not gonna give it to you. That's another level.
It's
I
a
think.
mess. Anyway, Jeff, you're going to look at it again.
Do you want him to bring it forward with an analysis of the Highlands East
Yeah.
policy in terms of how it would affect Dysart?
We don't have the Highlands East policy, do we?
It's attached to his last
Is it?
report, which is
I didn't
linked.
read it. I'm sorry.
I can't find it either.
It's linked to his report.
Anyway.
Which link is it?
Sure,
Paul,
we can send it out again, though. You're not gonna go
Yeah.
through the details of it
Yeah.
right now, probably, but.
Yeah. We won't be able to get through it now.
So is that the one specifically, though, Amir,
Well,
you
that's
want that
the
for
closest one, the
discussion?
Newest one, isn't it, Tammy? That's the.
yeah, I think it's the newest one. Jeff, the other 3 that you picked, were they also new ones from those municipalities?
No, some of them are still dated. Algonquin Highlands policy is very similar to our past policy, but Highlands East is quite new.
I don't think Minden's even got one, do they?
No, they don't. Nope.
So they can put them anywhere. Okay. All right, well, we'll give it another go next meeting then. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. So we go,
I have a resolution.
oh, you do have,
I do, I'm just finishing.
you're working overtime today.
Be it resolved, the council receives for information purposes this report relating to former policy 38, a policy to establish a local municipal protocol for the review of telecommunication tower proposals, and further direct staff to bring back a review of the Highlands East policy in relation to Dysart. Does that make sense?
Mover and seconder. Nancy and Tammy, all in favor? Okay, now a resolution to go into closed.
Be it resolved, the council adjourn its regular meeting at 1:14 PM to discuss matters pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act as amended pertaining to a proposed acquisition of land in the township of Dysart, and advice that's subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose.
Mover and seconder. Nancy and Walt, all in favor? Gary? Okay. And now a resolution on the closed session.
We have to meet.
Do we have to wait?
Yeah, she's shutting it down and bringing it back up.
Oh. We can do the closed session meeting.
Good.
Okay. So we need, there's no notice of motion confirming bylaw.
Be it resolved the bylaw 2023-49 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular council meeting held on April 25th, be read a first, second, and third time passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached.
Mover and seconder, Nancy and Carm, or Tammy rather, all in favor? Carried. Adjournment.
Be it resolved the council adjourn its regular meeting held on April 25th, 2023 at 1:45 PM.
Mover and seconder. Walt and Barry, all in favor?
Just
Okay,
give it a minute.